Afternoon.
9 viewers, 6 thumbs up. Ken Foster says howdy.
Thank you, everyone. Hello, hello. Howdy, howdy. Oh. Welcome to the other side of the shop.
The fab side.
Yeah, fabrication side of the shop. This is where we're going to be spending some time this evening. We're releasing a new guillotine tool design, and I'm going to kind of show how we put it together here in this video. And then we're going to be pretty much talking all things guillotine tools tonight, and taking Q&As and things like that. I needed to be able to fabricate these up. I ran out of some welding wire, so I've been needing to fabricate these up for a little bit for some photographs for the website. And so I figured, you know what? We'll kill two birds with one stone this evening, and we'll talk about guillotines. We'll do some Q&A, and you guys will get to see a little bit of the fabrication side of things over here at Chrysler Ironworks. So hopefully everybody's doing well. Thank you all for joining us, and I hope everyone's had a great, what is it? Been a month, huh?
Yep, it's been a month.
I hope everyone's had a great last month. So who do we have, Jess?
Let's see, we have Ken Foster. He says, there we go. We have James Helmke. Greetings from sunny Florida, Ohio.
Greetings.
Ken Foster says, just saw the video 10 seconds ago.
Awesome, awesome.
Pumpkin Patch Forge and Ironworks says, hey, y'all.
Hello, hello.
Dana.
Good to have you.
Good
Dana.
evening.
Hello, hello.
The Fencer's Forge. Howdy, young fella. Long time no talk.
Yeah, well, long time no talk. Good to have you. Good to have you. I don't know how young I am, but young enough. I like it. We'll just stay young.
Core 181 says, greetings from Iowa.
Oh, greetings. Greetings all the way from northern Michigan. Oh.
Yep. Dana,
Yeah.
I'm here too. That's right.
Yep. You can come around to the front and say hey.
Oh, okay.
Hello. Oh. Well, anyway, so yeah, I've got several things. We have several things we want to talk about this evening in relation to the CNC side of the business and some new tools that are coming out and clearance items we got up for grabs and the Memorial Day sale, all that good stuff. And then, of course, I want to talk all things, around guillotine tools and help people with that. And then we're obviously, like I said, we're going to be building these new guillotine tools that have come through here. So I'm just going to take you through kind of the fabrication process. So even if you're not making one of our kits per se, you can think about these things if you're making your own guillotine style tool. And I mean, there's hundreds of options of styles out there now that you guys can find. So even if you're making your own guillotine tool from scratch, you can take and apply some of these techniques, and hopefully they will be handy. And since I know that we have a wonderful knowledge base here on the channel, I'm sure everyone's going to be able to chime in and tell me how I'm welding poorly and what I should be doing different. I should point that out. I am not a professional welder. I have a lot of years that I have done welding. I have enough that I would trust my life to it. There you go. But yeah. We're not going to get out an X-ray gun anytime soon on any of Roy's welds. So, grinders and paint make me the welder I ain't. Okay, so just keep that in mind for all you career craftsmen out there. Career welders have been welding for like 50 years. So,
Austin Thompson says, first, I am a beginner bladesmith and I want to try some blacksmithing. Do you go to Ren fairs or community events or sell items online mainly?
So we used to go to a lot of art and craft fairs. We've never done any Ren fairs. I've attended Ren fairs just as a pedestrian, but never as an actual exhibitor. And most of our business has been, I would say, good 98% of it has all been online. Has all been an online business. So that's pretty much from the get-go, from the jump. So a couple reasons for that being, I'll talk a little bit about on the business side of this since you brought it up. A couple of reasons for that being is in the digital age that we are in right now, everybody kind of goes online to look for their things. Everybody likes to be comfortable in their easy chair ordering their brand new socks and underwear from Amazon, right? And years ago, Jessica and I caught on to that trend that that's the way things were moving. And we kind of just did it not because we're super geniuses or anything. We did it because, well, it was just happenstance. We were just getting more sales online than what we were doing in person at in-person shows. And it was kind of a cool transition period at that time. We were transitioning from having 2 young kids to 3 young kids, and the prospects of us going and being at craft shows and demonstrations for 8, 10, 12 hours a day and blow a whole weekend like that wasn't a possibility for us. So because Jessica had her hands full with managing children, and I did too with demonstrations and everything else. So we ended up just going and leaning real heavily into the online world, and that has been incredibly good for us. So my recommendation is that if you're just getting started into it, you need to do it all. You need to have stuff online. You need to do as much in person as you can. You need to get your name out there and be proud of your ironwork and get it out there in front of people's hands, no matter what it is that you're making. So the larger the net you cast, the more fish you ultimately have a potentiality of bringing in. And so if you're just getting started at it and you're trying to start a business in forging or any type of business, it's all about exposure. You need to get as much exposure and eyes on your products as possible in order for the right buyers to find your stuff and want to purchase from you. And I recommend doing it all when you first get going. Be in person, meet with people, do shows, do Ren fairs, do whatever it is that you have opportunity to, and you never know how that's going to turn out for you. I know some people they started into doing arts and craft shows, and now they just work for high-end private clientele, and that's all they do is high-end ironwork for private clientele. There's no, there's no cap on the money they can make. And then there's other people who started in doing arts and craft shows and are still doing arts and craft shows 20, 30 years later, because they have a circuit. They found the ones that they sell the most at, and they've developed a customer base that looks for them every year at those shows. So, all is possible. It just depends on how you want to work it.
JIJ Forge and Fishin says, will this be on YouTube after it's over?
Yeah, this stream will be published live on YouTube after it's over. So you can always go to the channel, go to our Christ Center Ironworks YouTube channel, and you can look under lives, you can look under shorts or stories, and they kind of have that across the top scroll bar. You can find it on the live section and just click on that, and that'll have all of our previous live streams and our most current live streams. Yep.
David Reedner says, I just got healed enough to be able to forge again. Almost have my guillotine tool finished.
Awesome, David. Glad to hear that.
Tim O'Connor, good to see you.
Tim, hello.
Ken Foster says, Jess, those spider earrings, my daughter wants to know if we can get those as clip-ons. Most likely. Yeah, I'd have to look at I should be able to just epoxy them onto some clip-on fixtures, fittings. Austin Thompson says, I just bought all the equipment to start, including a power hammer and a press, etc. Building a shop now. I am going to blacksmith or sharpen while I learn.
Very cool. Congrats on starting the journey.
Yeah. David also says, I'm hoping to order an air assist treadle hammer for a reasonable price from a popular shop y'all may have heard of.
Well, there are some reasonable prices out there. And it is Memorial Day weekend after all, and there is a 10% sale going on. So
we do, yep. We do have a sale going this weekend for Memorial Day.
Could sweeten that pot.
Mm-hmm.
I like the way you said that. There's some guy on YouTube, some people know him, and he has some things that hammer some other things. And I might be getting something someday.
Just maybe. Just maybe.
Like, how can we be as vague as possible?
Probably just took a picture of my feet.
Oh.
Come over here and grab a picture of this.
Got a picture of that?
Yeah.
There you go.
I'll do this.
Okay.
Do it at an angle. There we go.
There you go. All right. So let's get to talking about these new guillotine designs real quick. So we have a very popular guillotine tool over on the website that I'm going to be using. Rita.
All done.
Okay, you're interrupting me.
I know, sorry.
I need to get on the train of thought.
Okay.
Okay. No interrupting.
No interrupting. Got it. Stay on this side of the camera.
Love you.
Love you too, babe.
All right. I'm going to set these things away. So we have 2 guillotine tools. Now, our original guillotine tools that we started off with were your standard C-frame and A-frame guillotine tool style. And although I like those, we ended up discontinuing those as a product. And the reason for that being is the A-frame guillotine tool, it came with die stock that was different than the C-frame guillotine tool. And not only that, we had to cut a bunch of extra little pieces that required us carrying a whole lot of extra stock on hand. And it was a totally separate process than what we could produce off the plasma bed. And so I like things to mesh well, right? I like backwards compatibility of all the products we offer, and that's something that I'm really aiming for across all of the tooling we have, is a lot of cross compatibility or backwards compatibility. That means if you buy the newest thing, it can still use your oldest of things. So if you've already created dies for one thing, you can then transfer those dies and use it in the new thing that we have created and have that backwards compatibility. And so we have a dual bay guillotine tool over on our website, and this one has the labor arms, so you can use that, which is a really cool tool to use, you know, and you have the 2 bays there, so you could do 2 different steps all with one tool without having to do any die changes. And then we also have the single bay guillotine tool as well. Well, the single bay guillotine tool is just like the double bay, but it's just a singular one. Now, one of the things I liked about this design, coming up, couple things. One is you get all this extra throat material in here, so you can get wider pieces in on the guillotine tools. And on the double bay, if you look at the double bay, if you just remove one of these dies, now you've got twice that depth, so you can get really wide into some pieces. So that was one feature I was real keen on bringing out to the market that I really liked. And so I brought those out, and that's all grand and well and whatnot. But the biggest feature I liked about these, that the way I designed them, was to take an aid. I designed it to have a tab and slot method of connecting everything, right? Now, I am not the original guy to come up with tabs and slots and things like that. You guys have seen this style of thing go on, chances are, have anybody ever seen like a laser, like a laser cutout puzzle or laser cutout boxes, right? Where they got finger joints on the ends and it's all laser cut out. And all you gotta do is slip them together, put a little bit of glue in them. Well, that's kind of where I got the idea to do this. I'm like, hey, let's transfer that and do this in steel and make the fit up for welding a lot easier. Because one of the things that the C-frame, the old C-frame style, and the old A-frame style guillotine tool lacked was that ability. You had a lot of you had to clamp a lot of stuff in a lot of special ways and kind of line stuff up and kind of scooch and dooch and whatever, and then get some tacks going and then fully weld out the deal. Whereas with the tab and slot method, you can just, you just drop your pieces in where you want them, clamp it, and weld it. So it makes it a lot quicker to put these together and hopefully a lot simpler. So you can see these are some finished ones here that I've got. And so with the new one, with the new guillotine tools, that's what we've aimed for. So not only have we aimed for that, but they have gotten bigger. So for instance, our dies, now all of our dies are uniform across the board. They use a 5/8 thick by 2-inch wide die by 8 inches long. So we made that uniform. The previous dies on the C-frames and A-frames, they were only 1.5 inches wide. And then the C-frame was 5/8 and the A-frame was 1/2 inch. And so we've standardized now to where now it is this 5/8 by 2 die stock. When I can get a trusted quality for 4140, there will be 4140 dies that will be this 5/8 by 2. And that'll be what I'll hold in stock, will be 5/8 by 2 $41.40. That will be an additional that someone can purchase later on if you decide you need high carbon steel dies. But these are mild steel. But the design's pretty slick. Come up. This is an A-frame. We're going to weld this one up first. There's a front and back, and as you can see, we have the slots there, and then we have our tabs on our T-piece here, and we can just put those in there just like so. Could put a couple tabs in here very easily into our slots, and then we could just arc weld that up. Just do 2 plug welds right there, and now this is connected. And then you could do the same on the other half. So you put the other half on there, right? And now you've got a whole unit. You can see how quickly this really does assemble very quickly. So now you just put 4 welds and your pieces together. Then you drop it into your base plate after welding on your hardy stem, arc weld it to the base plate, 2 welds there, and you're done. So within 7 welds, you've got a fully assembled A-frame guillotine tool. And that is like super awesome because it's really easy to clamp this together. You can just throw your simple C-clamps. These are nothing special. They're from Harbor Freight. So they're cheap C-clamps. They're 2-inch C-clamps that I'm using. You can just crank this up nice and tight somewhere on here. And because everything's aligned already by those tabs and slots, it really helps you align everything nice and easy so you can then, weld this up. Now, there's always some play, and I've left a little bit of play in these. I've left some play in these guillotine tools here, so this way you can adjust which way you need to do to get a perfect fit up for yourself. But then that die can just go straight down in there like so. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. But yeah, so this is kind of the cool thing about that die. Within a very short order, you can have a guillotine made up, lickety split, and all that comes in part of a kit. Now, before I go too far, I'll talk about these kits. Crank that up too tight without that die being in there. There we go. So the A-frame guillotine tool kit, that'll be on the website for $60, shipped anywhere in the United States, the continental United States. So that includes free shipping. That's a new thing this year on our website. We include free shipping on all of the items in the United States. And the C-frame guillotine will be $90 shipped in there. So if anybody's wondering, Roy, but wait, what's the cost, right? Now you know. Now you know what the cost is.
Same info is repeated down in the description too.
Yep, Jessica has that down there.
Pumpkin Patch Forge says, does it have to be arc welded?
Yes. Now, this particular one here, so yeah, these designs here are ideally, I'm not saying that you couldn't figure a way of bolting them together. People have, and you can. Or you can drill and rivet things together. But the way that these are designed as a welding project for you to weld them together. Now, we do have an option that we're going to be running on these for a limited time. We will weld them out for an additional cost. If somebody wants a fully welded together guillotine, we will weld them in shop and ship them out as a fully welded unit. But that's at an additional cost, of course, because you're paying man hours on that. But yeah, I designed these for to be arc welded together. There's a couple other really great designs. I can't think of the names of the makers of them. There are a couple other designs. There's a guy in Canada who make them. God, I'm gonna forget his name right off the top of my head. Black Bear Forge featured him once. He's a Canadian smith. I took a class with him. This is terrible. I took a class where he was in the class with me.
It'll come back to you later.
Yeah, it'll come back to me. Anyways, he designed one that's an all bolt together kind of thing. You can bolt it all up, and it doesn't require welding. I have found with bolts and things around guillotine tools, I personally like them welded. I like them welded up, but I also have welders, so I'm going to be a bit biased towards that. But I have seen guys rivet guillotine tools up before, things like that, and there are probably some workarounds you could find out on how to do that on one of these as well. But in the base kit, it's basically just set up to be a welding project.
Ethan Hardy?
No, it's not Ethan Hardy.
Hug says, while you're falling asleep tonight, you'll jump up and shout his name.
Oh, I will. I'm still watching it.
Tim O'Connor said the Smith and Magician is riveted.
Okay, Smith and Magician, that's one of them. Man, it's right at the tip of my tongue.
Mm-hmm. That's all right.
You remember the class I took with Tom Latney, Peter Ross.
I don't
He's a
remember.
Canadian Smith. So here for a good time, not for a long time.
Uh,
All right.
I know who you're talking about.
I'll
but
remember
yeah, I
it
don't remember his
eventually.
name.
Yeah, it'll be in the middle of the night. I'll jump up and be like, whoa, okay, yeah, I remember. Although that won't help us in Roy's storytelling right now, will it?
Hi, Robert Lannis.
Hey, Robert. Good to have you. Welcome. So, all right, I want to move on. I'm going to bring up close to the camera. I want to show you the first thing we're going to do. So all these pieces, at least on my bed, on 1/4-inch plate, it's really tough to get thick pieces of plate with plasma perfectly dead square when things are cut, especially if you're production cutting them. There are ways of tricking systems and making machines work a certain way where you can get them a perfectly square, almost a dead square, like laser cut level amount of squareness to them, but that takes a lot of time and increases a lot of labor and cost. It's not overly efficient. So we cut for efficiency here in this shop because it's just me and Thomas in here, and we have a whole lot of other stuff to do other than worry about like each individual cut being the best that it can be. But our machine cuts a pretty nice cut, but it does leave some draft. So I'm going to bring this up here. Hopefully people can see this. There you go. Can you guys see that little bit of taper to it there? It's got a little bit of a bevel to it. That's the draft I'm talking about. It has just a little bit of draft to these parts. It is something that I have tried to get rid of, and even though when I get close, then the plate bows as you're cutting it or moves around, from the heat, and then, it's not quite square anymore. So you can see that little bit of draft. And so what that means is, since this is a welding project, it's a kit, you're going to have to file that bit of draft off. Not that it won't fit, it'll fit together, it just won't fit as tight as it's supposed to be. So instead of filing, I'm going to use a flap disc on an angle grinder to take that draft off. Now I've already took a little bit of draft off of these pieces here, and these are the interior pieces. The reason why you want to take that draft off is it leaves a little extra space, a little extra gap that you don't want in the die. It gives too much tolerance to the die. You want a little bit of rattle in your dies because you don't want them to get stuck and permanently adhered into your guillotine tool, right? Like you want them to be able to be released and come out, right? So I like to leave a little bit of play in my dies. Some people want them just rock solid. I've had guillotine dies stick that way before, unless they were greased. So I would rather have just a little bit of rock or a little bit of play in my dies, so this way I can easily take them out, just one-handed, just pull them out and be done. So that being said, you want to remove some of that draft and you want to adjust this to fit for your particular preference when it comes to tolerance levels. So what we're going to do is I'm going to clamp both these up in the vise. And I'm just going to take and use a flap disc. I'm using a 120 grit flap disc because you don't need to be super aggressive with this to clean these up. And we're just going to quote unquote power file it. That's what I like to call the angle grinder. It's a power file. It's one powerful file. So if you're wearing earbuds, you may want to watch them right now. It's about to get a little loud, okay? So here we go. one side. Flip it over. I probably took enough off on that one side, but I'm going to take a little more on this side just to be sure. All right, you can come on, hun.
Okay.
Those pieces should be good now. But we shall find out. We shall see. We're going to lay our die up on here. We're going to put our pieces in. Bada bing. Check them for fit here. Huh?
Ken Foster says, I thought the stuff Roy had had a hole in the bottom to knock it up. So that's the C-frame wheel, right?
So the C-frame guillotine tool. The C-frame guillotine tool will. Because of the structure of an A-frame guillotine tool, the hardy stem is directly under, is like literally just directly under the die itself. So you can't knock anything out. In the C-frame styling, I have provided a hole where you can take a punch and tap out a die to punch it out. But in the A-frame, the actual nature of an A-frame guillotine tool won't allow that unless you put the hardy stem off to one side. Now, that is a possibility. You can do that if you want to. You would just have to drill an additional hole, drill a hole that you can plug weld in, and just move your hardy stem off to one side, and then you would have a hole that you could punch through. So, and that might be worth a while consideration. We might add a hole there at some point, maybe, if that's enough requests. We get enough requests to do so.
The single bay and the double bay both have that feature too, don't
Yep,
they?
the single bay and double bay both have that feature. Yep. There we go. Looking good. You want that die to move through nice and easy and have just a tiny bit of play. I don't know if they can see that play there, but we want to have a tiny bit of play because we want that die to move nice and free. Now, the reason why also you don't want to take this up super tight right now is when we weld this, it's going to pull. It's going to pull tighter than what it is right now. So you do want to leave a little bit of gappage and a little bit of play in there because as soon as we arc weld this, all that's going to draw down on itself and it's actually going to snug up quite a bit. So you don't want to overdo it.
Matt Jenkins?
Matt Jenkins,
Yep.
There you go. Yes. Somebody figured it out. Thank you, thank you. He's a good guy. Enjoyed my class hanging out with him. All right.
Tim O'Connor says, I've seen people place a business card in the slot before welding for a gap.
Yep, you could do that. One common thing, what I told people to do on my guillotine tools was to wrap it with a bit of paper. You know, a bit of copy paper.
Do you need a sheet?
Huh?
I said, do you need a sheet?
Nope, I'm hoping that this will be, should have all of the gappage just right on this. I've got it really clamped down for the welding, but when I take that off, when I take that pressure off, it should be fine. Trying to make sure she all fits up like I intend. Good there. Good there. So with any luck, this should all fit out right and nice. Good. Now, obviously, I'm talking and chatting and jawing, so it's going to take longer to put this together than if you were seriously doing it by yourself, right?
Ken Foster asked why you don't use welding magnets.
Well, welding magnets won't be helpful in this case. So, the welding magnets, I'm meaning clamping pressure, not magnetic holding, just to hold stuff square. Now, unless you have a different way of using a welding magnet, that's generally what I use welding magnets for, or just basically just to hold stuff square. Have a quick square to hold stuff up to. But right now, I'm not needing to weld anything up square. I'm just making sure everything's in line, getting all my alignment right, so everything sits nice. It looks good. Making sure it goes in the slots nice. And if you've aligned these portions up, this other portion should be square. If this is correct, this will be correct. It'll be squared off of that and should be just fine. But now we're ready to weld. So I'm going to go ahead and weld this up real quick. It won't take no time at all to do it. So it's going to be basically 4 plug welds. While I get set up, Jess, you can funnel me a few more questions if you want.
Okay. Let's see here. Let's see. Robert Lana says, I just won a double bay from Bar Run Forge. Have to assemble it. And thank you for donating that, by the way, Roy and Jess.
You're very welcome.
Ken Foster said he saw an article on making rivets look like ladybugs. Do you think making a stamp would work better than doing it by hand? You'd have to chase it into like a little die block.
So what I believe is, if you want to make those, if you want to make a rivet header that had a ladybug impression in it, I think it would be great as an initial step, and then you refine the ladybug later with a little bit of chiseling work or a bit of file work. So any open die forgings that I have seen, or closed die forgings, they are always kind of muted, if you will. They are like a great pre-form, so you whale that in, right? But they're dull. I don't know the best way of saying it. The lines aren't real sharp. They're not real crisp. The details aren't there. So you can come in later and just kind of sweeten up those details, and that would save you lots and lots and lots of work, right? So think of a die or an open die or some sort of rivet set that has a ladybug impression into it to take and form that out. Think of it as a kind of like a prequel step, right? It's a pre-step to your final step where you do your hand chasing. Because anytime I've ever seen people use, dies for anything, it always leaves the item in question kind of dull looking. It's not very sharp, especially anything that you have a lot of detail in. You always need to come back through and sharpen up all those details again. All right, we're gonna go hot here. I'm gonna weld up 4 pieces, 4 things. Here we go. Should be all right. There's 4. Flipping it over. Good. Take that off. Bada bing. Die still comes out. Nice. Drop all my clamps off in there.
Still going?
We're good to go, babe. Come back in. So. And as that cools down, it's going to snug up a little bit on that die, which is good.
Tim O'Connor says, my eyes!
Ah! I guess I should have probably said flash warning incoming.
Yeah.
Flash warning incoming. So, all right. So that's got that portion done. This gets set off to the side then, and now we weld up our base plate. So the hole that's in this base plate is there so you can plug weld this out. So you can weld that out so you can have a nice sharp outside corner joint or inside corner joint that it lays nicely against the anvil. If you choose that you want to take and put a fillet weld around this, you need to grind a bevel on all four sides of this die, of this hardy stem, and you need to get a good penetrating weld in there, a nice root weld with a pass, and then you can grind it square again. If you fail to do that, and you just put a fillet weld on the outside, then you grind most of that away with a grinder so it fits in your hardy hole, it will snap off on you. So I provide the holes here so you can definitely get a good plug weld on it, and then if you want, like I said, you could have this beveled off and add a full weld in there so that way you can grind it off. Now, I'll defer to all of my welding friends that weld for a living. There's probably a better way of doing that. You guys can comment down below. There's probably a better way of making sure you get a good solid weld on a hardy stem. Make sure to drop it in the live here or comment after the live is over on the regular comment section when the video's up to give some advice there. I'm sure people would be glad to hear. And in fact, I would be glad to hear some advice on that because I only know 2 ways to do this that have worked for me in my shop. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do what's worked for me in my shop. All right. Any questions, Jess? Comments, complaints, concerns?
Yes. David Reedor asks, what is the best way to make a fuller die for a C-frame?
Best way to make a fuller die for your C-frame guillotine tools, you want to find out where you want that die to exist. I usually say at least an inch up off the bottom. You want the top surface of that die to be. And then you want to go ahead and make your cut. So you cut your way through there. And then what you do with the die itself, so now you'll have 2 halves, right? You'll have 2 halves. You'll have a little short stubby and you'll have your long, tall die stock. My suggestion to get a nice, even radius on both of those to make a nice fuller tool is to grind a flat, so at a diagonal like a 45, another 45, in the distance across that flat, make them exactly the same. So if you grind a flat and that flat, say, is 1/4 inch, this is 5/8 thick, say if you grind a 1/4 inch flat spot. So when you measure across that flat, it's 1/4 inch. Before you turn it around, make sure it's 1/4 inch on the other side. Do so to both halves of your dies. Then you can smooth off those corners of that 1/4 inch flat spot and you will have the same exact radii for both dies. And then you can aim them and you can look at them and you can see how close they match one another. In forge work, it is not crucial that the radiuses be absolutely perfect. If you want them perfect, you're going to have to go have them machined perfect. And let's just face it, you're going to be wailing on this with a hammer and your hand's going to be all crooked and whatever. It's not really necessary. So as long as you get them real close, the effect will be the same. So the effect will be the same. But that's the easiest way. Take a flat on one side and measure the distance across that flat. Establish a flat on the other side that is the same as that side. And then when you take the corners of that flat off, you end up with a nice round radius. Just like when we're forging, we go from square, right, to octagon to round, right? Same thing. Think about that. You're just doing 1/2 of that equation. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
See, Bobby Lana says the bevel is definitely the way to go, but if you penetrate it with the center weld, that should hold fine.
Okay, good. Well, my question is, so the bevel, right? I've seen guys bevel, and I've beveled them. My thoughts is, what if someone were to establish a gap, like say they stuck something in there to create a stick off? You know, maybe it sticks out, say, a 1/4 inch. They create a 1/4 inch gap and they get the weld really back in there. Like, you know, first you plug weld it, you build up some weld where it's plug welded, and say the gap is a 1/4 inch off, then you fill that out. I mean, I imagine that would be a lot stronger, but a lot more tedious for something like this. I would think that would just be a real exercise in tedium.
Thomas dropped in, said was clearing out some ground until the skid steer decided to blow its hydraulic filter. We don't get a new one until 7:30 tomorrow morning.
Woohoo! Lucky you. Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
Set in it for 10.5 hours. Eric says that is how some things are welded.
Yeah. Well, that's what I thought. I just think it'd be tedium. That's why I say bevels. You know, if you're going to do it, grind a real meaty bevel around it and get it really good in the root of that. So when you grind it back square, it's solid. You know, you don't have to worry about it. So let me come out here. I'm going to show you guys what I've done. Bring it up close to the camera. So you guys can see that I drew an X corner to corner. Again, it doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but you can see how that kind of centers everything up. And then I've got my hole here. I've got this hole is a 5/8 square hole. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use that in there to locate where center is in the center of this hole, right? By gauging how long or how my triangles look. See? So when you look at it, all the triangles should be roughly even. So if you look at it and visually all the triangles are even, it'll be in the dead center of that hole. So if it's this way, you know it's off. If it's this way, you know it's off. Or likewise, if it's something like that, you know it's off from where it needs to be. So if you put the X dead center where all triangles are equilateral, then you know that that is the correct position for your hardy stem.
Tim O'Connor says I beveled mine and it's still holding on for 5 years.
Sweet. Seems like that's just going to be the best all around, I would imagine.
Ken Foster says I was led to believe that this stream would not use math terms.
Not use math terms.
Yeah, a little bit of geometry in the mix.
A little bit of everything. You know what? Instead of doing it in the vise, I think I'm going to use the mags.
Yeah.
Use these little magnets. Use the magnets so this way I can make sure that thing's square. Semi-square anyhow. These magnets aren't, these little magnetic squares are not that accurate as far as square. But again, this is a forging tool. And you're not going to have it everything super perfect. If you want it perfect, go ahead and make it perfect. But it's going to be hard to do that.
Foster says I have enough trouble trying to help my kid with homework without the directions from the teacher.
Check for overall squareness. Without hopefully moving it, Roy. What are you doing? You nut. Again, make this as perfect as you like. as a presentation piece, I'm trying to get myself some welding credit here by making it perfect. Looks good to me. It's good to me. All right, we're gonna make some arcs and sparks. Now I like to start dead center and get a good hot pool started and then work it around to the outsides. Looks good. Now I don't put a lot of weld on that. I don't come much above the surface. The higher you booger on a weld, the more you have to grind it down. So I wouldn't come up real proud. Get up to where you start really wetting in the edges, make a nice trip around, and call it good at that. So that's all welded up now. Should be good to go. Jess, you're free to come back in. She's running away. She's hiding. Just put a little weld splitter on there. You're good. You can come back in. That thing's screaming hot.
Robert says, does the camera have welding helmet on it because it goes dark when you start the weld?
No, it just has a maximum ISO rating, and if you exceed that, it says goodbye. What the heck? I'll grind it off. Got a couple little sputters there. That aren't going to help me. Ears. Watch your ears, folks. Alright, part 2 done. Then we add part 2 and go into part 3 here by plopping that on down. And all we gotta do is arc weld that up.
Awesome.
Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, goes together quick.
It's not too bad.
It's probably like, what, 15 minutes or less if you weren't talking?
Yeah, it should be about 15-20 minute project. It'll take you longer to set your stuff up than it'll take to weld it up. So it'll take longer to set everything up to get to welding than what it will to actually weld out the project. So, questions, Jess? Comments? I want to hear some more stuff here.
Thomas says, just my helmet is over by the cabinet.
Yeah, try to tell you his welding helmet's over there if you wanted to wear it.
Oh, okay. It came out as just. So I was like, okay.
Oh.
Yeah, typos, huh? Eric says, I've had to use Google to help my kids with college chem homework as well as algebra, trigonometry, and geometry. Ken Foster says, wedge, inclined plane, pulley, axle, and lever. The lever made the axle go up and down and hit a piece of wood. As I told her teacher, I doubt any other kid has that. Probably not. Yep. Yeah, Math Antics is pretty good. If you have like middle school aged kids, Math Antics is a good one for his videos are really entertaining on YouTube, and then he has extra videos and worksheets online on his website. Yes, Timo Connor, it is raining. It's been raining for a couple of days now.
Raining just a hair.
Mm-hmm. That's all the questions I got for you at the moment.
That's all the questions? All right, well, then we will proceed.
Okay.
Now, all we're going to do is just going to weld this up. We're just put a fillet weld across this. Nice and easy peasy. Take this piece, put it in my vise, I tend to like to just weld the sides. I don't weld up the bottoms to make sure she's sitting nice. I don't like welding up the bottoms of these. I like to just weld the sides in and call it good. There's no point in welding up the bottoms because then you just have to grind that off anyhow. So just keep that in mind. That's the whole reason why I got this vise sitting here, because it makes this, it's nice to have a shop vise that's right where you want it to be. Good. Got it there. Bring it a little closer. Make sure it's square to where it needs to be. Grind off welding BBs. It's going to get loud. Just like that. We're all finished. So there's the A-frame. Nice and easy peasy, not too hard. Now I will say one thing, and maybe you guys, maybe you're more experienced welders out there, you probably hear it. My welder, this Hobart welder, I've had it for a long time. I think it's about toast. It's kind of like, I gotta crank it pretty hard to get it stuck in, you know, to really get that weld, you know, to get that weld, have a real nice deep penetration to it. So I gotta run it like pretty hot on the machine. And I used to not have to do that. I could get it, you know, I could weld some pretty thick stuff with this Hobart. It's a Hobart Handler 190, and I'm running it on a 6 for the voltage. You know, 6 goes from 1 to 7 on the voltage, and I'm running it at 6, and the wire speed is pretty much set at half or just a little more. And I have got to like I said, it sputters quite a bit now, and I have got to like really force that, really force that weld. Generally in my tooling, when we weld stuff up here around the shop, we'll get stuff tacked up with MIG, and then we come back in with stick. You know, we'll come in with stick weld, and I can lay a mean bead with my stick welders down. So, because I weld up all of our tractor equipment and things like that that are engaging way harder environments, way harsher environments than what anything we're doing in the blacksmith shop is. But maybe some of you welder friends out there know a bit about that. But like I said, yeah, I think it's time for me to upgrade my wiring machine, my wire welder. So it's time to beef it up.
Ken Foster asked, do you ever use high heat primer on those?
High heat primer? Yeah, you could do that. Any type of high heat primer, any type of engine paint works well on these too if you want to keep them from rusting. Yep.
David Riedner says, as a total newbie welder, what was that stuff you dipped the welder into?
Oh, so this is nozzle gel. So basically this is a type of, it's like a type of lubricant. It's got a bunch of, pretty much, it's got like glycerins and all sorts of stuff in it. It's just like it's like a goo that you put on the machine to stop sputter. So it's like an anti-sputter gel. That's what they do. I don't know. It's chemical makeups. I'm not a chemical engineer, so who knew? Who knows what's in it?
Ken Foster says, you may want to wear a mask with that flap disc to keep your lungs safe if you do a lot of grinding.
Yep. If I have a day where I got a lot of grinding in, I've actually got a papper system. So if I've got a day where I'm doing a ton of grinding, like here, as you can see, this is a few seconds here and there. So it'd be a pain in the butt to have to put the papper on and off. But yes, you are right. While grinding, should wear masks. For sure. Keep that dust out of your lungs. Okay. Especially considering it's pretty nasty, that stuff, they hold all that junk together. All those oxides and stuff. Not great for the lungs. So
even though it's pretty sealed upstairs in my studio, the day you were doing a whole bunch of welding down here, my eyes started watering. I'm like, okay, I'm going to crack the window because the fumes still got up there.
Yeah, fumes get up there, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Tim O'Connor says, do as I say, not... ...
Oh. Yeah. No, it's always important to take your health and safety very seriously. We do here in the shop. Me and Thomas, we both have papper systems. Bought those in, so this way, if we're doing any heavy welding or any heavy grinding or any heavy copper cutting on the plasma bed, stuff like that, we have papper systems to keep ourselves safe, keep our lungs free of junk, and clarity. So usually in my shop, I won't throw it on if it's going to be, if I'm going to be less than a minute grinding something. It's going to take me longer to put on the mask than it would to take me to grind off the burr. So I'm not going to worry about it in that case. But then there's days where we've got a lot of grinding to do, or we have a lot of this whole place is filled with smoke, from welder smoke, and we're running fans and, and we're wearing masks and respiration, stuff like that because, well, we've got a lot of something to do. We're doing a ton of fabrication. And then on those days, yeah, we definitely mask up and do those sort of things. But that's kind of like everybody in their own shop. You kind of come up with your own comfortable level of of safety, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, with your own comfort level. Some more comfortable than others. Mm-hmm. Some I wouldn't take in. No way, Jose, would you find me doing that? All you guys out there forging in flip-flops. No way, Jose. All my work seems to find itself on my toes at some point, and I'm not that fast or flighty of foot that I could move out of the way in time. So no, thank you.
Ken Foster says, Gen X, I'm sure I've got something coming to me from my childhood. Harold Hotchkinson says, hello from Texas, 98 at my house. 1.5 hours of driving and 5 hours of testing at the hospital, waiting till Tuesday for results.
Well, I hope they come out good, Harold. 98 degrees.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. My mom's in Texas right now. She was saying...
Can I see my breath? That's what I like. It's 45 right here, where we're at.
My mom went out to Texas to visit my brother and sister, and she said she was just walking down the street. She was just pouring with sweat, and she's like, there's some other ladies just walking down the street too, and they just look perfectly normal. She's from Colorado though, so she's not used to that much heat. Ken Foster, I moved from Texas to Minnesota. I love having 4 separate seasons.
Yep. Mm-hmm. It is nice. BBs.
All right. Well, we're an hour in. Are you doing the C-frame as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
We'll grind up, work on the C-frame next.
Mm-hmm.
People want to see that. I'm also happy with Q&A, so
Yeah.
we can talk about stuff. I wanted to show off this thing a little bit better.
Yeah.
I'm not ashamed of my garbage welds.
Rotate it around one more time. Lovely. Since Thomas not here, you get to be the hand model.
You guys can see the amount of play, right? There's just barely any play in it now. There's almost no front to back play. See how I told you those welds would tighten it up?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Nice and easy.
Mm-hmm.
Should be able to pull out that die. So that's what you're wanting.
Yeah.
So you can see I didn't weld it on the bottoms. Said there's no point. And because we did a plug weld, and you can see I got some good heat into that. Because we did a plug weld instead of those, we don't need any grinding. We just put that right in the anvil top and we're good to go.
Got a picture of you just holding that up too. Like nabbing stuff on the go here. Right there. Beautiful. Thank you.
Like it?
I
What's
do.
everybody saying?
Let's see. Ken Foster says, your sweat glands are sort of set by the age of 3, so you acclimate to where you are. I go home at 90 plus, feels okay, but holy heck, I can't be in shorts at 30 degrees. The people up here are in short sleeve shirts and 30 to 40 degrees.
Yep.
Thomas says, Roy loves me and got me a nice hood and a belt filter VersaFlow, smiley face.
For what?
He says, Roy loves me and got me a nice hood with a belt filter VersaFlow, smiley face from Thomas.
Yep.
Keep your
Don't want
lungs
him dying
healthy.
on my watch.
Mm-mm.
I'd have to pay the attorney too much to make that go away.
Yeah, or a replacement.
Find a replacement, Thomas? Come on. He's one of a kind.
That's right.
He's one of a kind. You can't find a replacement. To that much awesome?
Yep.
No way, Jose. Oh. Alright. Take a break for a second and then we'll answer more questions.
Okay.
They got them?
If you guys
Yeah,
got
then we'll
questions,
also-
drop them now.
Yeah, we'll also talk more about our sales and stuff going on here.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
We'll do that, and then we'll move into the C-frame. We're an hour in, huh?
We are an hour in. Yeah. so
I
like-
really stretched that out, didn't I?
Yeah. Come over and grab a picture. I'm doing this for the listing, so that way it's like I'll have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is how you gotta get the sales, folks. This is how you gotta get the sales.
Grab one more. I'll do this slight angle. Here we go.
We're double tasking tonight.
We are. Eric says you couldn't find hands like those in 100 years.
No.
especially now.
Yeah, especially now he points around corners unintentionally. Where'd the guy go? That way. Over there.
It's all on the wrist.
It's all in the wrist.
Waldo the Wizard says, do you know much about induction forges? Poking the bear.
Let's see here. I know how they work in principle. I've seen them work. I've watched other guys use them. That's about the extent of my knowledge of induction forges. So, one of the things I'll say about induction forging that I know is there's a lot of overhype on them, I believe, right now. And I think it's because they're new and they're available. You know, they haven't been around. Induction forging has been around for a long time in an industrial capacity, but they have not been around for a long time in the homeowner grade capacity where they were even possible for the likes of you and me to go out and purchase the unit, right? They are pretty expensive, and so there are definitely some downsides with them. So your power goes out, your induction forging career's over with for that time being while the power's out. If something breaks down, well, you're not going to be able to fix it or weld on it or do anything with it, you're going to have to send it back to the manufacturer and have the manufacturer work on it, and or send you out a replacement, which could be quite costly and have a lot of downtime. They can't be rained on. They can't. So if you're in inclement weather or if you have to pull your stuff outside, induction forging is not going to be your thing. They require a ton of electricity, and yes, they do require electricity and a good electrical service to run them at their full and peak and advertised specs. And so therefore, you're going to have make sure that your electrical panel or whatever outlet you're plugging it into is capable of handling that induction forge on there. So if you're a bit in the rural area where your shop is, 400 yards from the nearest electrical anything, induction forging is not going to be your deal. Just runs too much. It'll be hard to find a generator that can keep up with the electrical needs of that. So beyond that, every time they're kind of like a gas forge in a way. You design your coils around your project, not your project around your coils. So that means you're going to have to build multiple shapes and styles of coils to handle a lot of different work. Now, if you're a knife maker or if you do a lot of small, simple, straight things or flat things, it's going to be pretty good for you. If you get into really weird shapes, not going to be so great. If you're getting into a cantisleeves, I guess I would say is like one of those things, or you're getting into, multi weird shaped scrolls. Again, you're going to have to design coils specifically to kind of work around what you're doing. And one project might require you to do multiple coil changes. So I'm just outlining some of the things that aren't talked about on social media about those things. Just from if you just have a sit and think, you can think logically about whether it would be good for you or not, and avoid the hype. Now, are they an incredibly cool tool? Heck yeah, they are. I mean, they're incredibly cool. But you got to be able to have the pennies to use them, and you got to be able to have the pennies to install them and get the most out of them that way. So just something to think about. An old coal forge, I can do everything and more than what an induction forge could ever do for me, because, well, for as long as blacksmithing has been around, everything that's ever been forged has come out of simple flames, right? So sometimes as simple as pits in the ground. And that doesn't require a mechanic. That doesn't require an electrical engineering degree to work on it. That doesn't require any service calls. If it's not hot enough, you add more fuel or more air. Pretty basic, pretty simple. So in my type of work, I am a big fan of more historical blacksmithing. So like the ambiance. In my work, I like making things and chasing things the way that they've done for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. That is something, when I get in the forge, that's the thing that I like doing that sort of stuff. Back when I did things as a production blacksmith, if I would have had an induction forge back then, heck yeah, I'd been using it, right, for all sorts of stuff. Hell, if I would have had the CNC bed back then, I would have been using this. I'd been using the heck out of the CNC bed, cutting all sorts of blanks and projects like what we have at our website. Like, the amount of money I could have made with lizard hook blanks, you know what I mean, back in the day when I was doing arts and craft shows and stuff like that all the time, had I had the CNC equipment to do it, I could have made a boatload of money. And in that case, that's where technology can be great. It can take and help you have a lot. It can aid you in production, in your production smithing. My goals in smithing have changed and converted a little bit over time. They have morphed. And my goals now is to kind of recreate things from, pretty much the late 15th, early 16th century France. So I like French Baroque ironwork, or the Baroque and Rococo period of ironwork, and that's the kind of thing that my field of study I like to focus on. But as far as if I was making a lot of tooling, sharp, flat, pointy things, like knives, induction forge would be an amazing thing to take and add to the arsenal.
Pumpkin Patch says, use the tools that make the job quick, easy, and profitable.
Yep. Yep. At the end of the day, you just have to remember it's a tool. A tool is a tool is a tool, right? It is not the tools that make the smith. It is the smith that makes the tools. I've been harping on that for over a decade now, and because it's so true, right? It's just so true. You can't buy your way out of experience. You have got to put in the time at the anvil to have, or time at the forge to have any good product that's going to come from it. Just because you fire up an induction forge doesn't mean you're going to be a smithing god all of a sudden. Here you are, like, level 100! I bought my way to the top. And I got a nozzle 4B, so now I'm the master of all masters. And no, and you still don't know how to draw out a simple taper. So, you can't buy experience. You only get that by earning it. One hammer stroke at a time.
Good morning, Speargrass.
Hello, hello.
David Redner says, this week I tried to make a fleur-de-lis out of a 1/2-inch stock. I wasn't able to get even. Any advice on how to dial that in?
Out of 1/2-inch square?
I believe so.
Okay. Well, if you're using a method that I'm familiar with to make it out of square bar, think about your pre-setup. Your pre-form is everything. So if you have different amounts of thickness or mass in the preform, so let's say one side's a little thicker and one side's a little thinner, like one way that you might go about doing this is 1/2-inch square bar. You would forge a fan, like a fishtail down, and then you would cut out the fleur-de-lis and, fuller it back. I've shown that on the curtain rod holders I made for our house a little while ago. If that was your method, you fanned it out, and if you look at that fan sideways, side profile, and one side of that fan or that fishtail is thicker than the other, when you go to cut it, you have more mass there, so it's going to stretch. It's going to stretch at a different rate. So think about your preforms before you go into the fleur-de-lis. Make sure that they're even across the board, and work that step out first. And then it's just as simple as making sure your lines are cut even, and your chisel work is doing even. So, and then you end up with a much better result. Mm-hmm.
He said he had round stock and he flattened it out, then pointed it.
Yep. So he pointed it, and then he tried to cut the flares out of it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, really, the best way I could say is, like I said, watch your thickness. Make sure that you don't got a weird taper going from left to right. Make sure the thickness is the same and even across. Again, if you have more mass on one side versus the other, that side, when you go to forge it out, it's going to stretch. It has more material to stretch out, and it's going to go further than what your other side will, and you're going to get something a little bit lopsided and a little off. There is a kind of a rule in forging. You take it up to a point, you try to go as close to forge finish as possible, but there is no shame in getting out a file and filing it correct. So sometimes you just have to do that. It's not worth repeating the process just to, get something 30/2 of an inch more square or true. Consider the scale of your projects, folks. So say this is going to be for a towel bar. Most people is like, oh, cool, he's got some nice ironwork in this bathroom. And that's going to be it. That's going to be the end of it. They're not going to they're not going to iron up, look out the details. If there's a lot to look at in a project, so for instance, the grill that I'm making, the Baroque grill that I'm making, there's a lot of details to look at. And so there's so much that it's overwhelming. And so therefore, not any one piece has to be exactly perfect, right? Not any one piece has got to exactly match or fit the other. There are so many inconsistencies because I'm a human, not a robot, right? There's so many little inconsistencies. Now they're close, they're real close, but they're so close that when they're all put together and there's so much to look, you can't pick out any one thing as a glaring issue with the human eye. And so consider the scale that someone's going to be looking at. If it's a gigantic gate, or say you're making a sign bracket, it's going to be hanging 20 feet up in the air, right? If your fleur-de-lis is a little cattywampus to one side or the other, people are probably not going to notice, as long as it's not like, way exaggerated, right? Like, if it's close, you'll probably be fine.
He says it's a garden stake for glasswork my wife is making, so I wanted to make something nice. And Roger Caldwell says, from what I've seen, it looks pretty awesome to me.
Cool. Yeah, so, it's good. It's admirable to have those goals, right? To make something nice for the wife. But again, as I said, consider the place. Sometimes done is better than perfect in those cases, because you can fuss and fiddle and fart and fuss with this little tiny detail, and you got a lot of other things to make, right? And ultimately it's going to be out in the garden.
Punk Pat says other smiths will notice though.
They might, and you can show them where the door's at too. Tell them to don't let it hit them where the good Lord split them.
Speargrass says it's those inconsistencies that make it unique and one of a kind, that prove that it's handmade, not mass-produced, and you can make 100 and all are different, not machine-made.
Yep. So when you're making something in your, for your house, I'd like to encourage you guys on this. You have got to accept, I hope this will be encouragement. Hopefully everybody will listen to this. I don't know how many people we've got watching, and hopefully
29.
Okay, for the 29 people that are in here, I hope you'll listen to this and take this bit of advice. Okay, you've got to realize where you are at as a smith. What skill level are you at as a smith? Be honest with yourself. Be realistic with yourself, right? If you are just getting into the craft, give yourself some space to breathe. Anybody who you admire that is doing work in this field, in blacksmithing, that you're like, whoa, that blows my mind. Maybe someday I could be that good, right, as that guy. They have spent a long time getting to that place. So when you take your own project that you're at home, don't be so negative about your piece not looking like that master or that person you follow, right? That you think is just, wow, their work is just stunning. They took a long time to get there, and they made pieces, guarantee you. Because there are no savants in blacksmithing. I don't care what anybody tells you. There are no savants in blacksmithing. You earn it. It's a physical workout. It's a hand-eye skill coordination. You have to have some artistic abilities. You have to think about things a certain way and processes. And all those things, they come together with experience over time. So if you're just getting started into it, give yourself a break. Enjoy the process. Make your ugly bits of ironwork, because I guarantee you those masters made way more ugly pieces of ironwork than you've ever dreamt about. It's so much more than an Instagram profile or YouTube or a TikTok or a Facebook or wherever else they're posting their ironwork, in whatever group or whatever social media avenue. They are posting their highlight reels. Okay? That's their calling card. Look how great of things I can do and I can make and write, and they all have their own purposes, okay? But what they're not showing you is their scrap piles. They're not showing you the billions of failures. They're not showing you the tonnage of steel. If they're any good, they've sent tons of steel back to the scrapyard. I guarantee you. If they're of any worth of their salt and they know what they're talking about, they've sent a bunch of stuff back to the scrapyard. So give yourself a break. Be happy with what you made, right? Be happy with what you made. Know that it's just your start of your journey, and you're going to get better over time. My good example of that is, oh Lord, have I made some ugly ironwork. We've shared it in streams before. My channel members know. I have made some real turds as far as ironwork is concerned. And at that time, buddy, I thought I was going places. Man, look at this. I did this thing. I'm amazing. Whoa, look at this. And then my parents, my mom, God love my mother, it's like, oh, honey, it's so great. No, it was garbage. It was ugly, terrible garbage. But I was beginning, right? I was just beginning my journey as a smith, and I didn't know what I didn't know, right? And I didn't have the time in at the anvil yet. And so it is perfectly okay for your stuff to be a little lumpy, to be a little weird. Don't let that hold you back from making 1,000 garden steaks for your wife. By your 1,000th one, I guarantee it'll look way better than your first one. You know, and any amount of fussing about you can do with that first one won't matter. Guaranteed. So hopefully that'll encourage some of you all out there. Give yourself a break. Be honest where you're at in the craft and just enjoy the process. Enjoy the learning and in the building up of years of experience, learning new stuff and making fun things.
Roger Caldwell says, I have a whole bucket of lessons learned.
As you should if you're active.
Speargrass says, hey, I've seen some of the things that are sold online that people actually buy. I'm pretty good, so I can accept my pieces. It's not going to be a Roy Adams or a Carl Royer piece, but it looks all right.
Yeah, and that's all it has to be. It just has to look all right to you.
Tim O'Connor says, Roy, there's no such thing as scrap. Add it to another sculpture.
Well, there you go. That's the way to think about it, brother.
Heidi ho, Spencer Coots.
Howdy ho, good neighbor.
Ken Foster says, take a picture of your first and then your 100th.
Yeah, you'll amaze yourself. First versus 100th, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see how this shapes up, see how much I need to take off for my draft. This one will have to take off quite a bit for the draft, but that's all right. Get exactly what I'm wanting. Not too bad.
Pumpkin Patch says, good advice.
Oh, actually, Jess.
Uh-huh.
This is the one that I'm going to need to...
Does it need more adjustments still?
Yeah, these are the ones I'm reminded of this. This is the ones I need you to adjust.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, I forgot all about this
Mm-hmm.
while we were putting it up. So this one's got too much. It's got too much width. We added too much length to these. We need to snug her off a bit.
Okay.
So I'm gonna have to grind off a good bit on this one if I was gonna put it together.
Okay.
Kind of more than I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll wait on this one. We'll have to weld that up some other time.
Okay.
But just because this isn't...
The finalized, it needs a little tweaking.
Yeah, this needs just a little bit of tweaking, but that'll be done on Monday. So we'll have that cut Monday.
Okay.
Yep. A little bit of tweaking. So what I have here is what I'm talking about. So setting this all together, I was trying to find... Jessica, you could probably bring the camera over easier than I'm going to be able to hold this up to the camera.
Okay.
If you bring it over, that'd be great. There you go, Roy. I tried to pick it up, and that's what happened. All right, so what I'm talking about is right in here. So we've made this. I designed this with a bit of tolerance in it. Well, we just gave it a little too much. We gave the same amount of tolerance to both sides when it should have just been one side split in half. So that's what happened with the tolerance on this piece. But as you can see, hopefully everybody can see in there,
Yeah.
there's a good bit of gappage in there, and you wouldn't want to have to grind all that back. So that will be corrected in the ones that we ship finalized out. But yeah, so when that's all connected together, that's got way too much slop in it for a 2-inch die.
Yeah.
I meant to get with Jess about that. But again, we set this off to the side for a couple weeks, and I totally forgot all about it. So, yeah, there's a little 1/8-inch gap there. Since this is a newly released product,
Yeah.
sometimes there's things like that.
Yeah. Little kinks to work out.
Yeah, a little kink. So that'll actually be a lot snugger when you get it. If anybody buys these over the weekend during the Memorial Day sale that we're running and stuff, that gap won't exist. in the actual final product. So just to let everybody know. But basically the way this C-frame guillotine tool goes together, you would set it up much like this. You show it over here, Jess. You'd put your 2 back pieces in that you've cleaned up, as we did in the other example, that you cleaned up that little bit of bevel on there. You'd set your back pieces in. You'd set your die piece in. Put your front pieces on. And you would clamp all this up with your clamps. If that makes sense. So you drop those in. You'd clamp all this up with your clamps. And you would weld this out first. And then finally you would drop it in your base and weld it after you put on your hardy stem. So basically we would follow that same process. You make your X on your thing. X marks the spot. You would weld it onto your base plate. Then your base plate would go on, and 2 fillet welds to hold that thing up, hold it together, and you're all done. Make sense?
Yes, it does.
And then your C-frame would be completed. One other thing I want to point out about these C-frames are a little bit bigger than the old C-frames. So there is a bit more mass in these, a little bit more material. But we did that to take and make everything nice and robust. Like I said, that extra 1/8 inch gap won't be in the final version. So come Monday when Thomas and I cut these. Yep, we'll have that all adjusted and take that out gap. But you can see how handy that little tab and slot method is for making these up. Pretty handy indeed, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely. Goes together quick.
Yep, goes together quick. So, all right, I can set that offside. We'll answer some more questions, and actually, apparently we won't be doing any more welding this evening, unless I wanted to do a boatload of grinding. So, and I don't want to do a boatload of grinding.
Roy plans on filming videos for these too.
Yeah, they'll actually be. Hold up.
He'll be right back.
There will be, gotta do a hat change. There will be assembly videos on how to put these guillotine tools together. So don't anybody worry about that.
Let's see here. I was trying to see if there's any questions specifically about the guillotines. Art of craftsmanship, please do that and tell us how it turns out. Laughy face.
Will do.
Let's see here. Don't see any specifically about the guillotine. Eric says, Roy, what are your thoughts on a side blast forge? Have you ever gotten to use one much?
I think they're cool. I've never gotten to use one. So I've wanted to build one for a while. I just never did. I've always used my forge that Jessica bought me from many years ago, and so it's got a bit of a sentimental value to it for me, and so I've just been using that, forever. I think they're a neat concept. I know they're really popular over in Europe. I know a lot of smiths swear by them and say that they're so much better than bottom blast and this and that, but I don't know enough on it myself personally to take and say whether they are or they aren't. But yeah, that's my thoughts.
Okay. I see as part of a longer convo there, Spencer Coots, the thing about abstract art, you could literally sneeze on a canvas and make thousands. He says, snort paint first. They do like color. Spencer says, I saw it on a Disney show when I was a kid. Made me laugh. Not the snorting, just the sneezing. Let's see. About
so true. So true. Well.
Yeah, sneeze and then put it under a glow light, see all the germs. Joel says, does it come with dies?
The C-frame guillotine tools and the A-frames? Yes, they come with dies. So they come with a die blank, a singular die blank, and then we also have extra die blanks available. The die blank that it comes with is a 2-inch wide by 5/8 inch thick by 8-inch long die blank. So there's plenty of meat there to stick out the top of your hammering surface, and you can make that go together. Basically, you find where you want to split this in two, you cut it off. The smaller part becomes your bottom die. The taller part becomes your top top die, and bada bing, bada boom. You just grind it to whatever shape that you want. One other alternative to doing this as well. Let's say I've seen guys make beading dies where they make like a bead, like a round bead in the center of a bar. And they do that by bearing races. So they take some, the races of bearings that the bearings roll around in. They have that shape to them. They have that like interior concaved surface. And they straighten those out and weld them to the end of their die, right? And grind them up all nice. And then they have this, concaved area, so it's more like a swedge. You can grind it into a convex shape for any type of radius that you want for, any type of beading work or other things you might want to do. There's all sorts of dies you can make with these. Butcher dies, you can make guillotine dies that are actually like, to chop stuff off. Your mind can run wild, right? Whatever you can think of to do a top and bottom die on. A lot of people use guillotine tools to make tenons, to make the life of making tenons on the end of bars a lot easier. So guillotine dies are pretty much excellent at that premium. That and necking down pipe. So necking down pipe, if you ever want to do any type of pipe forgings or so, guillotine dies are your best friend when it comes to that. So.
David asked, will you have high carbon dies for the old C-frame setup?
So for the old C-frame setup, right now I'm having a hard time, so I can't say yes to that. I would like to have that for people who have purchased those from me in the past, at least have a small quantity of stock on hand for that. What I ran into when I went to go get 4140 from Alro, I ran into an oversized problem. They were trying to give me decarb free. So they were trying to give me, carb free material that, basically the machinist can remove, right? So it came off like almost an 1/8 inch bigger in every direction. I'm like, well, that's not going to work. I've got dies that are exactly 5/8 by 2. So I need something that's 5/8 by 2. And so I ran into a problem. I actually ordered in about $2,500 in die stock, and I ended up having to send it back because it was an 1/8 inch bigger in both directions, and it just wouldn't work with our dies. And I had ordered that in both the 1.5 by 1/2 inch and 1.5 by 5/8, and I was going to do it with the 5/8 by 2. And again, like I said, I couldn't find it in the correct size that somebody wouldn't have to take this and angle grind off an 1/8 inch off their dies, like every die. And I'm like, well, that's a lot of material I'm paying for. When you're thinking, when you're talking the pure linear foot that I'm talking about buying, that's a lot of material money that's just went out the window because somebody had to grind it off. That's extra material you guys would have to pay for. So I didn't want to do that. So I can't say as of yet, yes, until I can find a good source for it and find the right thing. So I'm thinking right now, hot rolled. They have some hot rolled stuff that seems to be at or slightly under by like 20 thousandths of 20 thousandths of inch. They have like at or under die material, so I'm going to try that. I'm going to try a sample first. I'm going to buy like 1 bar. I'm going to buy like 1 bar, not $2,500 worth, and see how that goes. And once I can find a good source, then yes, I plan on having that stuff in stock. But I can't make any promises, unfortunately. So I'm at the mercy of what they sell stuff as, unless I want to re-roll the stuff or grind it all myself, which I am not going to do. That would make the dies astronomical, and that's not the point of a kit. The point of a kit is not to be super astronomical. The point of a kit is for it to be, well, fun to put together and relatively cheap. So
Pumpkin Patch says Alro's been dropping the ball on their tolerance lately.
Yeah? Oh. Well, the tolerances that it came out as was out of tolerance according to their own book for the same material. So it was even out of tolerance for that. And so I was like, no, I couldn't do it. At the time, I didn't even have their book. So I didn't even have their book that had their listed tolerances. I do now, but like I said, I've been kind of trying to shop. So it's always a balance, right? It's always a balance. Like if you want something like, I'm trying to find regularity. That's the thing I'm trying to find. I try to find stuff that I know that you, when you buy from us, you're getting a consistent quality product. You're not, one time you buy die stock from us, it's one size, and the next time you buy die stock from us, it's a completely different size that doesn't work, right? Because that's not what you're paying for, right? You're wanting to know that, hey, when I go to Roy, I'm going to get something that's 5/8 by 2, not 7/8 by 2.5. And now I got to do some weird sawing or some other weird thing to it, right? Like, you want to know that every time you come back, you're going to get a consistent quality product. And boy, I'll tell you what, that's hard to do. That's hard to get manufacturers to see that. Like, the end goal is to have a consistent quality product. That's exactly the thing. So when you see guys who offer these guillotine tools and they got like perfectly polished dies and all that other stuff, and they're all out of high carbon steel, I guarantee you they're having those dies machined off. And they're surface grinding them to size. And that's why they're so much more expensive. Right? Because somebody had to buy the surface grinder. Somebody had to grind all the stock down. Someone had to, put all that effort into making a pretty little die. Versus when you're getting a kit, you're buying something more raw. And they're a little less kind on the uniformity.
Pumpkin Patch says he's a machinist and they won't buy from Alro.
Oh, no. Oh. Well, I've had run-ins with Alro in the past, long ago. They had a different guy. They were under a different kind of management. The new manager, he's a pretty cool dude at our local Alro. And the whole team there at our Alro and Alpina are pretty awesome people. So I don't have anything bad to say about Alro. At the time, it was like about right close during pandemic. It was post-pandemic, I guess you would call it. It was like 2021, something like that, right? It was like we're still in it, but not really. During that time, it was under a manager that me and him, well, we just didn't get along, so he irked me so that I drove 6.5 hours one way to go get my steel from my previous supplier down in Ohio, and I did that for over a year. Went to GNR, which is down in Grand Rapids. They're a good place. They're good people. Scott down there, he's a great guy. Bought from there as well, and that's 3.5 hours away. So that's how bad he made me angry. Was just he had an arrogant attitude. Well, if you don't like the prices, better buy now. It's only going to get more expensive. And it's like, oh, really? All right. Well, how about I just take my business elsewhere? Oh, so I didn't like that much, but I've been treated pretty good since then. Like I said, since went back to Alro, I've been treated really, really with flying colors up there. So the Alro and Alpina, again, good peeps up there. But yeah, they're limited though, right? They're limited. That's just a branch of the much larger organization, right? They're limited to whatever comes down the pike, right? Can't do a whole lot. So up here, unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of other options for buying new.
Yep.
So I live so rural that they're it, pretty much. So unless you're willing to drive. So.
Or have it freighted.
Or have it freighted, yeah. You do that, yeah.
Yep. Tim O'Connor says guillotine tools are way cool for pipe work. He likes to make bells with his.
Yeah. That's a fun little process to make little bells. Candle snuffers, those are fun. Flowers, all types.
Is it candle cups?
Roses. Pipe roses are pretty fun if no one's ever done those before. They're not too hard. You can make it out of square or round pipe. Pipe roses can be pretty.
Spencer said he had to run.
Take care, Spencer.
Harold Hotchkinson says, I'm glad my two best friends are great welders. I'm not allowed to weld anymore as I have an ICD implant.
Yeah. It's good to have good friends then, huh? Make them weld it up.
Looking back, I'm seeing that.
Yeah, looking
I
back,
think we're up to,
probably,
yeah, I think we're up to,
Up to current?
yep, up to current.
Cool. Cool. Oh, well, does anybody have any questions about the process? Any questions related to the business, CNC, anything like that? You guys can drop it in the comment section. I'll be happy to answer them. Until someone does, I'll just go ahead and go on a tangent and ramble.
Yeah, we never got around to saying shop announcements either.
Yeah, we never
were
got
going
around
to
with shop
earlier.
announcements, but we should probably go ahead and go on to that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then, like I said, people can, jaw it up, and we'll read your questions here in a minute. After we go into that, you have a list for me to read,
I do. I can give you my
or do you want to read
page
it?
here. Oh, sure. Why not? I can.
Why don't you
read
come
it
around and read it off?
Oh, safety glasses. For some reason, those things like hurt above my ears.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's because you're wearing a hat. It drives them
Oh.
down on it.
Oh, okay.
Yep, the back of your hat.
Yeah.
It drives it down on it. Ask me how I know.
'Cause-
Wearing caps and stuff in
Yeah.
it drives that. The ones from Harbor Freight, they like dig into the back of the ear if you're wearing if you wear a cap, like a hat, like a stocking cap, or like when I wear my big Ysurka, that it
Oh, yeah.
drives that. I mean, it digs it into the back
Yeah,
of
it's
the
almost like you
earlobe.
need a
So
little rubber thing or something to slide over the end.
yeah, usually by the end of the winter, my back of my ears are cracked open because of that.
Whoa. Ouch.
Yep, digging those safety glasses in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Goodness.
Lots of fun. I'm gonna let Jessica tell you about some of the benefits.
Right.
It's our various features.
Let's circle on there. Yeah. So, let's see. So just before the live stream, I added the new guillotine tools that Roy's showing. The A-frame, that'll be $60 for the kit, and we're doing free shipping in the continental United States. And then also we have the C-frame, new C-frame one, that's the tab together design. That one's available for $90 with also the free shipping. And so yeah, you'll see those also under the tooling section on the website, and new arrivals. I believe I tagged them up to show there too. So those are new. We also have fish. Let's see, we've also come up with like fish bottle openers and hooks and ornaments. Those were requested a while back, and I finally got around to drawing them. I'm like, oh, I'll make sure to get that done before Father's Day, because I know a lot of fathers are, and a lot of guys are fishermen that might appreciate those. So those are new to the website also. And then we do have a few of our clearance items that we listed last month for clearance, because we were adjusting our sizes a little bit to make some of the stuff more shippable. And so some of the items that we still have left, we've increased it 10% off more, so now it's 50% off the original price. So we still have some 120 degree tools, 12-inch skillet blanks, some ship's wheel bowl blanks, shovel blanks, splat bowl blanks, seashell bowl blanks, and pentagon and hexagon bowl blanks available. So all of those are on clearance under the clearance section, and then we will have those still on cut on demand. So if you buy them, they sell well for you at craft shows and stuff, and you want to do more of them, we'll have them. The sizes are just slightly adjusted, and they'll be cut on demand going forward. And then also, all of these announcements are also in the newsletter that I'm coming out with once a month. It's kind of like a behind the scenes. It's a recap of our YouTube videos in case like you missed any of the, in case YouTube hasn't been serving you the notifications on that. It's kind of a recap. So that way you just keeps you up to date. Make sure you haven't missed anything on the shop. So the link for signing up for the newsletter will be down in the description below in case you haven't signed up for the newsletter yet. We only come out with one once a month, twice a month sometimes, but I just haven't had enough time recently to write a second one. So, but yeah, we're not gonna blow up your email, and we try to drop plenty of like behind the scenes stuff and like other things we've been up to. So you get to know us a little bit better. So yeah, so that's the newsletter. And see, I think I covered everything. The new guillotine tools, the clearance items, the newsletter. And then Roy mentioned earlier we had the Memorial Day sale, or actively going on. That's going to go through 11:59 p.m. Monday night. So if there's anything blanks or tooling related, that you want to get over at the website, now's a good time because you can get 10% off. And we're still doing the free shipping with that. So if you spend $25 or more and you're in the continental United States, we do free shipping. So get to take advantage of all kinds of great things.
It's a lot to say, ain't it?
It is a lot to say, yeah.
It's a lot to say, yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's okay, I had practice. I was club president, beta club.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a list.
And somehow, she still ended up with this guy.
You're very good at things that I'm not good at. Very good at mechanical things that I'm lacking in. So
yeah, she married a built-in electrician, plumber, HVAC guy, mechanic,
yeah,
farmhand, woodworker, metal worker, that kind of thing.
Yep.
I know my value.
I do all the computery stuff and bookkeeping stuff. And
she does all the white collar stuff. I do all the blue collar stuff. So
yeah.
It works out good.
Good way of putting it.
Labor management.
Yeah.
Love you, honey.
Love you, sugar.
Yeah. Looks like they were having some good questions there on the back, so
okay.
We can take those and reply to them.
Sure. See, Ken Foster. Oh no. Crashing Water. Will you be attending Quad State in Ohio this fall?
That is the plan. So it is the plan for us to be at Quad State this year. We are going to be pretty much my plan right now, as far as my Quad State plans, is I plan on every other year. It's a pretty big ordeal for us to load up, bring everything down, and do all that. And so my goal is to be like every other year, do a quad. And that also leaves opportunity to maybe go to other events and venues, not just Quad State as well, so it makes sense for us to do about an every other year sort of thing. So we didn't go last year. This should be our year to go, barring any major tragedies or acts of God or anything else like that. We should be hopefully at Quad State this year. That's the plan.
Art of Craftsmanship. Do you only sell the Guillotine tools as kits or as completed tools as well? I really like the duplex.
We have a welding, so we have a welding fee. We have a welding option where we will weld it up for you, but it will still come with a blank die in order for you to make it into however you want. So you can cut it and shape it to the thing that you need. So, and we have extra dies that you can buy. If you want to buy them through us, they're not that expensive, and you can just add that to your total, and we'll ship them out with the actual completed tool. We don't do any painting. We don't do any sandblasting. We just do welding. So we'll weld it up to where it can be a functional tool, and the only thing you have to do is cut your die and shape it how you want, and you're up in business. So one of the specifications on these Guillotine tools, so we send out the kits, or if you're having us welded, you specify what size hardy stem you want. We have options of either 1 inch or 5/8 inch. So 5/8 for like your smaller Achio anvils and things. It fits real well in their hardy holes, and 1 inch for all the other types of things. So we give you the option which one you want, 1 inch or 5/8, and we'll weld that on for you. And then the die itself, is like I said, it's a blank die. So you'll have to cut that and shape it the way that you would like. That way. We try to keep the kits as simple as possible, even with the welding fees. We've been trying to keep that as cheap as possible as well. The goal of it is not to have a full fleshed out tool. If we do make it a full fleshed out tool, it's going to cost a lot of money. So, and I'm just not about charging a whole bunch of money if I can keep from it, right? I'm trying to offer nice economical tools for you guys as blacksmith. Give you the tool, give you the ability with your own tool set to be able to make these things happen. So, yep.
Eric says, what should we be looking for when trying to get into craft shows or farmer markets, and what have you seen that sells well? Well, we recently did a lighthouse art market, and we didn't take a huge variety of items, but what did sell really well for us was hooks. We took like a variety of hooks, just different styles, and then also skillets. We completely sold out of skillets.
Yep. So to give a bit more context for that, if you are going to, so if you know the venue that you're going to, like a lighthouse, a lot of those hooks were lighthouse hooks, right? So a lot of those were hooks that were made that looked like a lighthouse that we were at, right? Or sailboats or things like that. They were all nautical themed things. And so it worked really well into our favor to have those nautical themed things there, right? People were buying them as a memento. People buy on experience. So that's what they want. They want an experience, right? We were demonstrating at the same time. Me and Thomas were forging anchors. We were forging an anchor as our demonstration, and then we had the hooks and such over on there. If I had a whole pile of forged anchors, I could have probably sold them that day. Had I had a whole pile of forged anchors, because people thought that was neater than all get out, right? And it fits in with the nautical theme, and so that's the way to think. So just know your market, or try to know your market where you're going to be at. If you're going to be in Beverly Hills, well, think what the Beverly Hills people want, right? Or that they're kind of going after, and try to curtail your forgings to that, if you can. That's the best way to do it. But people like to buy something from the blacksmith. So even if you got little, sometimes you'll get there, you won't sell anything that you thought you were going to sell, but you'll sell a crud ton of keychains. You make $1,000 in keychains. Like, what? How is that even a thing, right? And you had perfectly good, cheap items that people could have bought, and they just weren't interested. And the next venue you go to, you couldn't sell a keychain to save your life, and you'll just sell out of your big stuff. So people are fickle. It's hard to anticipate like that. Yep. You just got to keep throwing stuff at the wall and see what sticks.
Joel says, so what were the green ones with the handy dandy handle? We call those our single bay and our double bay guillotine toolkits.
Yep. The green guillotine tools, I'll bring those up again. These are over on the website. Again, we'll put a limited time welding option on these as well. Everybody wants these as an option. These type are my design that I've come up with to pretty much create a lever, so you can come in and you can set your die nice and easy like this without having to lift the die off and out every time you want to take and move your material around. So you just have a nice little spot here where you can lift the die up and set it onto your piece. It just makes it a little easier. It keeps your hands off of potentially a hot die. With this die here, once you've been using it for a while, that is one downside about this style, is you have to pick this up when you want to take and put material in there. It's not spring loaded, right? And so you have to pick that die up, and that can get screaming hot. Usually it's recommended you cool your dies from time to time, right? You just cool them off in a bucket of water and plop them back in and go back to town forging. But with this method, you don't have to worry about that at all. See? Then you can just use that. So the dual bay allows you to do that. The single bay is the same as the dual bay, except it's the same orientation and everything, has all the same features. It just has a singular die. If you don't need the production capacity, but you still want the lever amount. This one's a bit more expensive than this one here. And we try to keep the ranges reasonable. There is a lot of steel, like each one of those things weigh, it's about 20 pounds. Each one of those things are, like the double base 20 pounds. I think the other one's like 12 or 14 pounds. There's a lot of weight and steel in those things. It's out of heavy duty 1/4 inch plate. You won't outwork that thing in your lifetime.
Yep. Ken Foster says, do you make some fishing lure spoons?
We do not, but we could cut some.
Speargrass says, joke item, toilet spoon blanks. Ha 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 ha.
There you go.
David Reiner says, I have a homemade coal forge that is super small. I want to add more area to allow the coal to coke up. Right now it is like 18 inch by 12 inch. What size do you recommend?
Okay, so I'm assuming you mean the forge body. If you're talking about the forge body itself, my forge is 2 foot square. That's the whole thing, is 2 foot square. So it's like 22 inches or something like that by 22 inches on the deck, the body of the forge, so for the top of the forge. And for most purposes, that's going to be about perfect. That gives you a good 6 or 8 inches off to each side of the fire pot that can then coke up and be coking up and make a nice fire that way. So that would be my recommendation. So go for something that's roughly 20 inches square or 22 inches square of a surface area that you can pile your coal on.
Ken Foster says the 12-inch size skillet blanks are steel. The price for the same from my supplier is higher.
Yeah. You mean you got another supplier other than what? Oh. Yeah, we try to keep prices economical as we can, especially the clearance blanks. You know, those are half off, right? You know, we're trying to move them out because we've changed sizes. We've reduced the size a little bit just to take and fit better on the plate, again, to keep costs low and keep costs down. For those of you who don't know, that's just a bit of business I would like to talk about. You guys will notice that the website is always kind of morphing now. We've went to a new website, and we're running that on Shopify, right? Shopify.
Yep, Shopify.
Sometimes I say Spotify.
Yeah.
It's not Spotify. Shopify. We've done that so this way we kind of have this living, breathing kind of website that kind of fits with what we're doing, right? So we can make changes and we can adjust stuff. And you know, so we went away from the Weebly storefront to take and do this Shopify thing. And one of the things that you're going to notice, so some of the sizes that we've had to reduce a little bit, we're reducing those sizes to keep things at a similar price point because steel prices have went up quite a lot. And I don't like charging extra to the end customer. I kind of don't like that game. That's what a lot of people do, right? They say, oh, hey, everyone's raising their prices by 35%. Well, I don't want to lose any more profit, so I'm going to raise my prices up 35%. And the next guy raises his prices up by 35%. And before you know it, this is how life works, right? This is how, like, a Kia went from being worth, you know, $1,000 to being $100,000 Kia. Like, what? No, not going to do it, right? This is why, like, junk second-hand trucks are out of this world expensive. You know, there's no $500 trucks, heater with a beater anymore, right? Or a beater with a heater. There's not those things anymore, right? Like, it's like, no, it's a $10,000 beater with a heater. It's because everybody keeps passing those savings on down and passing the buck. And I just don't believe in doing that. So I take a bit of the hit on the profit margin. So this way I don't have to raise my prices. I don't have to crank my prices. I do that as a stopgap because there's a lot of people who rely on us for their business, right? For their businesses, because they're selling a product they're making from our blanks. And just by increasing their costs, we're just taking food out of their mouths as well. So as long as I can, I'm going to try to hold the line on that as long as I can. I mean, if things go up 60, 70%, well, then we'll have to rehash prices, but hopefully not. So one of our ways of doing that, one of the ways I'm keeping that, keeping the inflation out of your all's pocketbooks is by reducing some things. So, like, for instance, we have these, like, number 2 snowflakes. A very popular item. We've reduced these by, like, 1/4 inch in diameter. Not a big change, not really anything to speak of, but when you count how many of these we make, it adds up. How much surface area this takes on a plate. By us reducing each one by 1/4 inch, we can fit a lot more on the plate. It makes each plate more profitable, or in this case, right, it offsets that difference of that 35% increase. And we're able to do that now and help you guys out there making stuff. So you guys will see some different changes. One of the other things that we ran into with the website is just point of order. One of the other things we ran into with our old website, a lot of people were missing out on a lot of sales because a lot of people were coming to the website and they're plugging in their address. And they were getting quotes for like a couple $100 to ship it to them, right? Because they had terrible it had terrible shipping calculations, right? Like, so the calculations were all wrong. Big mess, big headache. So what we've done, again, to take and help you all out there, We just have a flat price now. It's that price is that price shipped on all orders above $25, pretty much, right, hun? That's what it is. Is it above 25?
We
or?
have it, yeah. So if it's under $25 order total, it's just $10 to ship it. So,
Okay. Yep.
And then if it's above $25, it's free shipping in the continental United States. If it's Alaska, Hawaii, then it's calculated.
Yep, there you go. So again, we're trying to. My hopeful goal is to eventually get to a place where it's just the price you see in the cart is the price you pay. So whatever you've seen it at, if it was $4, it's $4. You know, if you bought it for 18, it's 18. You know, and just offer that right across the board, because we find the fastest and most economical way to ship it for us, and then we get it out to you as soon as possible. And so that's kind of the goal there. You know, and both those things that we're doing, although maybe not known, are pretty revolutionary in our industry and in business. You know, we're doing things that others necessarily wouldn't do for you. So we try to do that. We try to find the best way to ship it, and we're trying to make sure that the price you see is what you get. You know, what you see is what you get. So you'll notice, anybody who's bought like number 2 snowflake blanks from us in the past, if you still got some holdovers, if you order number 2 snowflakes from us in the future, you'll notice, oh, these are a little smaller. Well, that's why. They are a little smaller, and that's why it's reflected on the website. All that's written out on the website, you know, under all those listings and things like that. So, but yeah.
Art of Craftsmanship, you mentioned the welding fee. I don't see that as an option on the website. If that's desired, should a prospective buyer request that in the special order instruction section? So you had asked me a couple months ago to take that option down for time being because you had been swamped. So
we can add it back on. It's fine.
Okay. All right.
Yep. I mean, so get with Jessica. Just shoot us an email, and Jessica can just
create a draft order.
Yeah,
basically.
she can just create a draft order for you and let you know what that is. So, yep.
Tim O'Connor said, "Yeah, I live pretty close, and some shipping was stupid."
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the weight of the items and the way it was calculated. It was adding up the cost of all of those items. The weight is adding up with the weight of all of them. So it's like, oh, this is gonna be a 50-pound package, but yet we had found some basically flat rate options in some cases
For
that
heavy
would bring
packages,
bringing down the cost. So
Yep. And so in those cases, so what ended up happening is for people who did buy, and they're like, oh, you know, I had to spend $75 on shipping for this, and we ended up being able to ship it for, say, $20. Then we had to refund the difference of $50, and that's a nightmare. That's a nightmare to have to go through that whole process, you know. And then we had people like, hey, you gave me $50 back. You know, what's going on here? Are you not shipping part of my order, or you know? And then, you know, it was a mess. So that's why we went to just free shipping anywhere in the 48 states, right? You know, in the lower 48, and then doing it like what we've done on orders above $25 or more. So it's just free shipping.
Speargrass says, this part of the conversation sucks for me because the shipping is always going to be icky. LOL.
Yeah. It's sad, Speargrass. It really is. So, it sucks so bad that we can't have international. There's not something we can do internationally from our place. The only way that we could do that is if we licensed our designs to a company in, say, Australia or in the UK or whatever, and had it be made there, and then somehow do that. But that's a whole process in of itself, getting something like that set up, you know, to do. But yeah, right now, anything international is insane. So, like, too much. We had somebody who was interested in one of our treadle hammer kits just recently, and they were in Australia, and didn't come out to like
$2,500.
It was 25. Yeah. Over. I knew it was over $2,000 to ship it. I'm like,
yep.
Holy snipes! You know, where here with my options that I have found, my flat rate options that I can ship my stuff here, I can ship our stuff for, it's like $120 to ship the kit here in the United States. So, you know, ship my, my treadle hammer kit, like the full thing, right? That's like $120 for me to ship it here in the U.S. But yeah, to ship it to Australia, it's $2,500. It's like, well, that's out. No one's going to be buying them in Australia. And I wouldn't advise anybody to buy that in Australia, to be 100% honest, right? Like, it's like, I would be spending $2,500 on shipping.
Tim O'Connor says, well, until the Chinese rip it off.
True. As with all things, so there's bound to be some thievery that's going to happen out there. So.
Speargrass says, I know. I had the idea too. If I get a table, I will hit you up. LOL.
Okay, good. No. Yeah, it's a tricky thing, the international side of things. I would love to take and service the whole international community. Of course, why wouldn't I? I'm a businessman, right? I would love to have all sorts of stuff. Whatever currency you have, bring me all your currencies. I would love it. Doesn't matter, but yeah, it's just the world we live in right now. But who knows? Maybe it'll get better in the future. We'll see. But you'll definitely see that on the website. So there'll be some changes. You'll see things as they go. Again, hopefully all for the better. So that's what we've been working hard on here lately.
Yep.
Yep. Any more? Did I answer them all? I know you didn't answer them all.
Tim O'Connor, watch out for that darn Bitcoin though.
Yeah, the darn Bitcoin. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I should come out with a Bitcoin. And not release it to anybody ever.
Animal coin or something like that.
Yeah, come out with something stupid and never release it to anybody ever. Oh. So much of that stuff is just like, no.
Smith coin. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, there you go. Smith coin. Well, nope, you won't be finding me running any scams anytime soon. So we won't be doing that here. I like to keep my nose clean, as the name of the channel implies. Well, I don't think Jesus would be too happy with me if I rug pulled a bunch of people.
No. Floss coin, Roy coin.
Yeah, it's a Roy coin.
Roy coin.
I'll get like $4 of investors. Oh.
Roger says, do you have any die stock for the older style guillotine tools, the 1/2-inch stuff?
Yeah, we do have some left of the die stock for the 1/2-inch. We don't have it on the. I don't think we have it posted.
I don't believe so.
On the website. We do have some extra. We do have some left. So if you are interested in that, just get with us. Shoot Jessica an email through the contact forms, and she can write something up for you.
Yep.
So, I've got a bunch of the die stock. I got a bunch of the material to make the dies in the bin. I've got that in the bin. Again, I was trying to move ahead moving forward is trying to make everything backwards compatible. So that way, I don't have issues like this, where it's like, oh, you don't carry my die stock anymore. Where am I going to get it? Well, I still have a short supply that we can make up. Yeah. So.
Ken Foster, can we send you pictures of stuff we make from blanks? Definitely.
Yeah. We love seeing that.
Yeah, we have a new feature also now on our website where there's an option to add photos to your reviews. So feel free to do that too. You can upload pictures of stuff you made from the blanks there also. And if you email us the pictures, sometimes we'll ask if we can share it on social media, and we'll repost that and mention who it came from, or keep it anonymous, depending on what you prefer.
Yep.
So yeah, we love to see what you guys make.
Sorry, my brain went to. I
Searching
thought I
for
remembered
dice.
putting the die stock.
Oh, right over there.
Over there yesterday, but
Might take a little more rummaging.
I think I put them out in the other forge area. That's what I did with them. So yeah, I had a few cut of the 1/2-inch stuff. I'm like, oh well, we won't need these. Well, maybe we will. Maybe we will need these. So.
Speargrass says obsolescence happens with everything. At least yours wasn't planned, Roy, or wasn't exactly planned, Roy.
No, it wasn't exactly planned. I'm not trying to make things obsolete. Trying to make them better. Trying to make them better, and that way I don't have obsolescence anymore. So unless I just decide I don't want to offer anything anymore, and then I'll just quit.
It's hard to think of everything at the very beginning of launching something, and you know, you don't know what you're going to want to add in the future, and then sometimes it might make sense to kind of refigure stuff.
Yep. Yeah, it's difficult to think of everything. We try to think out all the angles, but
Not always possible. But
that's not always possible. No.
Ken Foster says the abomination you see this weekend, that is supposed to be a skillet, is from me.
Awesome. I look forward to seeing the abomination of a skillet. As long as it fries eggs, my friend. As long as it fries eggs, that's all that matters. Oh, pretty tasty. No. So I'll tell people that is like one little forging hack you can get into. Skillets. Making skillets or cookery, eatery things. Anything that someone can use, be useful at, say, like a craft show or whatever. Usually that is an item that is so different. It's unique enough that people are like, whoa, this is kind of a special thing. This is like a one-of-a-kind buy. And it kind of has that air around it. You know, like how many people see a hand-forged skillet? Right? You know? Other stuff, you can see things like, oh, well, hooks, okay. Yeah, well, you know, do I really need to spend $40 on a hook? But that skillet over there is looking mighty tasty for, you know, $7,500, right? They're like, ooh, well, I might buy that, you know, because that's a rare thing, right? You know, because out of everyone else selling welded together garden art, you know, or whatever at the show that you may be at, boom, here you go. You got this forged thing that they can't get elsewhere, right? Like, unless it's been stamped or manufactured. And that could be a great shoe-in piece. So at one time I was selling between 50 to 30 skillets a month when I was doing skillets. And yeah, I don't care if I ever make another skillet a day in my life. I'm good. I made well over 600 skillets, so that's like, I'm good. I fleshed all that out. I made them as efficient as possible at the time. Yeah, and I'm glad I don't make them anymore. So, you know, it's something I got out of.
Eric says everything from Roy is a special thing.
Not really. Not really.
He's got stuff in the scrap pile that I'm like, why did you put that in the scrap pile? It looks really good. And he's like, no, there's issues with it.
Yep. Yep.
Ken Foster says that skillet is pretty darn beefy. Lasts so long the grandkids will fight over it.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Jeff Killian says, especially if you're firing bacon in it.
Oh, yeah. Anything's better with bacon, including the skillet. Post pictures of your skillet for sale with bacon in it. Pro tip. Everything's better with bacon.
Speargrass says there are restaurants that use forged steel pans, just saying. Yeah, we saw, what was it, at the Ren Fair? They had a giant skillet. It was like
Yeah, it was
3.5
massive,
or 4 foot across.
Yeah, it was just a welded up one. It wasn't actually forged. It was like a fabricated one, and they were making, I don't know, kebabs or something like that. Bunch of meat on it.
Yep.
It was an interesting thing, but they actually went through the effort and put a handle on it, even though it wasn't. It was the whole apparatus was a heated griddle, but then they put a handle on it, so it looked like a gigantic skillet. It was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Speargrass says Roy is special, Eric. Special bus.
Yeah, short bus. Man, with friends like y'all, man never needs enemies. But yeah. Yeah, skillets could be a good one. I know restaurants, I used to sell egg rings. That was a thing I made. At the time, the first egg rings I made out of just some pipe. Ground the welded seam off on the inside and then just seasoned them. And some chefs will use those, you know, they'll like put them on the griddle. They'll get hot, you know, they'll crack an egg into them and they'll put hash in there, or, you know, like a hash brown, an egg, and then like a sausage patty or something. And they'll just take that ring and it'll cook from one side and they'll flip it and come off, and it like creates like a nice little puck of food or whatever. They do all sorts of stuff like that where, you know, they'll put a I might put a pancake filling in the bottom of it. That way they make a perfect, kind of like a perfectly round pancake or a crepe or whatever. Those were a popular thing if you can get a couple restaurants buying those from you. Those are real basic, simple things to make up. Yep. It's all about the sales. So,
Kid KV says, I want to forge, but my broken arm has to get better. I broke it in 2 places.
Ouch.
Yep. Gotta give it the time to heal.
Yep.
Thomas can feel you. He had to give up forging for like, what, 3-4 months while his finger was healing?
4 months, I think it was. Yeah. No. Perfect time to get a foot power treadle hammer. Yeah, no, broken limbs, broken hands. You don't think about it, but man, you know, we use our arms a lot. Me and Thomas were talking about that, like went to his finger and stuff. It's like, man, I'd rather, if I had to lose my hands or my legs, I'd rather lose my legs than lose my hands. Because of how much work you do with your hands as a craftsperson. You know. So, neighbor.
Oh, practice shooting.
Mm-hmm. Neighbor over there practice shooting. Get him!
Let's see. Ken Foster says, I get a lot of compliments from the Trivet kits. I give those away to people.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Yeah, those are a fun little project. Those haven't sold like gangbusters, you know, like I thought they would. I mean, I sell made ones here that are on our Etsy. I sell those from time to time. But yeah, like as far as a kit, you know, those haven't sold as well as I thought they would, you know, because they're pretty quick and easy thing. But that's the way certain things work, right? You know, you have to, it's kind of niche. You have to find the right person, or like with us, since we're on the supply side of things, you know, you all out there, you might be taking these out to a craft show, right? And you're trying your luck. And so you have to kind of see what works and what doesn't work, right? And so you might buy one Trivet kit and it might sell really great. And now all of a sudden you're the main person that's coming back to us to buy these Trivet kits again and again and again. And now it's successful because we're successful because you're successful at it. And likewise, you might not be able to find that niche where that would really fit in. And then we don't sell any of them, you know? And then it's just kind of the way it works, you know. Skillets, those are pretty universal. Skillets are a good thing. Hooks are always universal. Flowers, you know. You got all the flower holidays for Mother's Day and Valentine's Day and anniversaries and you name it, right? You got all those. Those are really helpful. Birthdays, graduations. Bit sadder, you know, like memory flowers, like things for like memorial type stuff, you know. So those are all pretty universal sellers if anybody's looking to get into forging stuff.
Roger Caldwell says, I sell the spatula and ladle kits well.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, see, spatula and ladles, right? You know, there's something that people can use. They can use, and they're like, hey, this is this kind of rare thing that, you know, no one has, you know? So.
Howdy, Troy.
Hey there, Troy. Good to see you. Oh. Good point I want to point out. There's a point that just came to mind that I'd like to point out about that. About how do I say? Talk about like competition, right? So, or market saturation of things. One thing to keep in mind, some people say, I've heard this said across multiple different people now, that sell their work. Like, well, oh, the market became saturated, or that became saturated. It's impossible for the market to become saturated. So, you know, if you are the blacksmith extraordinaire, and let's say you're making some special hook, something mundane. Let's call it horseshoe nail hooks. We'll use that as our example, right? You're making this horseshoe nail hook. Then you see 1,000 other guys making horseshoe nail hooks. Does that mean you can't make any money selling horseshoe nail hooks? Go ahead and answer that question for yourselves. Okay? You see 1,000 other smiths marketing horseshoe nail hooks. the tendency is for you to say, well, the market's saturated with horseshoe nail hooks, right? There's no room for me to sell horseshoe nail hooks. But the reality is that sample size of 1,000 people is marketing to 3.8 billion people. So, no, the market's not saturated on horseshoe nail hooks, right? It couldn't be. Out of 1,000 smiths, 1,000 smiths couldn't even put a dent in it if they tried, right? You will have people who will sell them for a lot more money. You'll have people who will sell them for hardly any money, prices you can't compete with, and you will have people who will sell them for every price in between, and you will have successful and unsuccessful people at selling that one product. In their experience, may say, well, the market's oversaturated. Well, I've tried horseshoe nail hooks, and then I never sold one. So, market saturated, don't make horseshoe nail hooks. But the reality is the world is a lot bigger place than just you, right? It's a lot bigger place than just you. And even if you had totally the only right to sell horseshoe nail hooks, it's your original thought, and you're the only person on the face of the earth that's allowed to make these, there's no way you could satisfy all the clients on the face of this earth that may or may not want a horseshoe nail hook at some point. So you can apply, just insert whatever that may be. Flower blades, skillets, sculptural work, knives, hammers, whatever, right? It is not possible for you to saturate the market with your goods, or for a market to become oversaturated, or to become the only person that's doing the thing. It's just not possible in the global economy that we live and work in. It's not possible. So what that means for you, that's not a negative thing. What that means for you is that means there's tremendous upside that you have, right? There's tremendous opportunity. You can say, hey, I've seen guys get discouraged because, well, they made a few lumpy looking hammers and they never sold. And so they're like, well, the market's saturated with people who make hammers. So, clearly you just can't make hammers. And today, that's ignorance. That's ignorance. It's like, no, you just got to get better at making hammers, right? You just got to get better at making hammers. You just have to market it better. You just have to put it out there. You have to get people to see what you're doing, and you have to get it out there and try getting it in the right hands. There's a right kind of buyer for your type of work. There's a lot of hammers that guys have been really successful with that are ugly. They're ugly hammers. Ugh. I wouldn't buy one. But, right, and I'm not saying, out of respect to their companies, I'm not saying who they are because it's just personal preference on me, right? I'm not their buyer, right? But they sell a boatload of hammers. But they're not my cup of tea, right? Because I'm just not the right buyer. But they found the right buyers. And I've made hammers that their buyers wouldn't even want to touch. It's not their cup of tea, right? And so that's the way that works. So what that means for you all out there is there's tremendous upside to anything you want to do. The market's not saturated. You can get in there and you can slug it out with the big boys. This is good. And just as many. And if you keep at it, and if you're willing to put in the hustle and the drive and the time and the work, you might even out hustle and outwork them someday and have a more profitable business than maybe they do. So this idea that there's some competition there, or there's, the markets are saturated or this or that, really isn't so. It's just not a reality. You have to be very self-focused in order for that to be true. But as soon as you expand your thought a little bit and kind of look at the bigger picture, you realize how massive of the opportunities there are out there. So if you want to get into Smith work, if you want to get in any type of work, right? I don't care what it is. There's probably a place. There's probably a market for that. It's just up to you to kind of find your footing in that, right? And find what works. Because if you don't ever try, you may never come up with anything. You may never know. Right? If you don't release that out there, that creativity in the world, you may never actually get to realize those things. They may never come to be. Right? So you might be the perfect person that's perfectly suited to do the thing that you want to do. You just have to put in the effort behind it.
Ken Foster's having some questions about copyright and whether he should worry about it. For example, if he sees something somebody teaches on YouTube, and then if he takes that video and then makes stuff based on their techniques and then sells it, would that be a problem if it's their pattern, etc.?
So, that's a great question. So this is a subject that's, as someone who's done a lot of designing work, and I have produced a lot of videos. You've come to the right person, because I definitely have my own feelings on that, right? So there is, in the world of smithing, they say that there's nothing new under the sun. So, for example, this guillotine tool. Well, I'll just use this as an example. This is a great teaching point. This guillotine tool. There are only so many shapes that are possible or plausible to create a guillotine tool. At the end of the day, there's going to be dies that are aligned in some form or fashion, and they are going to have to take and forge the material. That's not a new concept. It's been around forever. It's been around longer than the people who are trying to take credit for the idea of it now, right? It's been forever, right? It's always been a thing, okay? There was probably an originator that came out with, oh, hey, I don't have my shop help in the shop with me today. I need to make some sort of thing, right? The predecessor to this was spring fullers, spring dies like this, or scissor guillotines, scissor swedges. That was the predecessor to these style of guillotines. So somebody came up, and as technology progressed, somebody figured out, hey, simpler, a little easier ways, or whatever. That is so far long ago. Okay, that's so far long ago. So if you saw me make this online, okay, if you saw me make this online, and you decided you wanted to make yours look like this, and you want, and you grabbed out your, your copy paper, and you're trying to draw a thing, and you're trying to lay it out, and you cut your own piece out, and you make your own stuff, right? Things like that. There is nothing technically, right, that Roy can do about that. There's really nothing. There is implied intellectual property rights, but you actually have to have a good case for that. Again, there's only so many shapes a guillotine tool can be made in this context. So I'll get to my point. I'm slow getting there because I just want you guys to hear this. But it is a real dink move not to acknowledge the person you took inspiration from. That's a big dink move. So that personally is the thing that sticks in my craw the most in the world we live in now. There's several other companies that service the blacksmithing industry that have taken direct copies of our designs that we make here, like direct copies, the ideas, and they produce them. What can I do, right? I mean, a circle's a circle, a skillet's a skillet, right? Like, I really can't, that's not something that I can patent. It's not something I can copyright. It's something I could get flustered about or whatever. I don't really care. I'm not going to mention them by name because I'm not going to give them a platform in which that, they can have better sales. And they even try to undercut me on price, which is amusing as well. Right? So, it's like, well, that's not what I'm about. So I'm not going to do that to them. I'm not going to take their designs and make them my own and do some. I'm just not going to do that. Could I be petty and could I get away with it? Yeah, but I'm not that type of human being. If they want to be that way, they can. But take it away from this kind of thing, right? And let's talk about something I've produced, right? Say somebody has forged something, right? And you've seen it online. They may have learned that thing from someone else. If they didn't mention it, right, when they made that, you don't know where the pedigree comes from, right? You don't know where the knowledge trail began or where it ended. So say if you saw something online, the best you can do is give credit to the person where you saw it from, right? There are master smiths I've taken classes with that they learned from somebody in front of them, right? They stood on the backs of giants previously, and they're handing down that information to me, and now I'm acknowledging the person who handed the information down to me, right? Because, well, it's a real dink move not to. That's what it is. There is, unfortunately, this thing in social media where people have gotten to a place, unfortunately, is the case, you want to stand out, you want to be recognized, you like hearing the 50 some odd friends or the 150 commenters saying, wow, you're a genius, the thing you made is awesome, how'd you come up with that? And it is so easy to lose the humility enough to say, I took a class with so-and-so and I learned this thing. Right? You can celebrate your own progress in that, right? It is so easy to say, well, you know, I think of some pretty cool stuff sometimes, right? And I have had that. I've literally had phone conversations with people who were close to me at one time where they were asking me very specifically how to do a thing. And I actually walked them through the whole process. And then when they finished making the thing, when the time came online for them to say, hey, Roy really helped me out with this, they took all the credit for themselves as if they were some genius. And I've been done that way so many times. So, and that's a dink move. Don't do that. Don't do that to people, right? So if you're inspired by somebody, you can say it's inspired. If it's for your own business, right, you're trying to sell something, you don't have to try to sell somebody else that you learned from. Like, you know, oh, well, I'm making this flour that I learned by so-and-so. Like, you don't have to do that. Just sell the flour that you're making, right? But if you're posting about it online and you're just, you know, and there comes up that time where it's like, hey, right? Wow, you're a genius. Wow, you're just the master of all masters. That's your chance to take and say, well, no, I'm standing on the giants. That's that humility, right? I'm standing on the back of giants who came before me, who taught me how to do these things, right? Mm-hmm. And I still got a lot to learn. That's a tough humility pill that it's so easy to kind of glaze over because we like the accolades as human beings. We do. Mm-hmm. We do. I'm sure there's a whole comment chain that I'm missing, huh?
Oh, a little bit.
A little bit. So, but yeah. So that may not speak specifically to your case, but in general, this is a thing that I'm kind of passionate about. Every chance I get, if I'm doing a technique that I have learned specifically from somebody, I will shout them out, whoever they are, in whatever type of technique. I used to do it all the time in my videos, until I had to cut and run on the videos. I had to shorten up the videos so people would watch them. My videos used to be 45 minutes long, you know, because I would sit there and say, yeah, so I was at the thing the one day, and man, let me tell you the story. Man, this brings me back when Tom Latney and I was doing this, and that's used to be how I do videos. And then after like the 14,000th person saying, dude, you talk too much, I kind of like just shortchanged all that. Like, here's a technique. You know, voila. I didn't say I learned the technique. I didn't say it was my technique. I didn't say it was anybody's technique. I'm like, here's a technique at making this. I usually showed 3 or 4 different versions where you could do something with that. Again, you don't have to acknowledge it all the time, but, you know, it brings honor to those that invest in you, right?
I would say also in the terms of like tutorials on YouTube, because it's a tutorial, it's implied that information can be replicated. So,
yep,
because it's a tutorial, they're showing the public how to do a thing.
Yeah, exactly. So like if I'm showing you how to make a steak flipper, what point would there be in you watching the video if you're not going to go out and make yourself a steak flipper? right? If I'm showing you a tutorial how to make a steak flipper or how to make a bottle opener or how to make a whatever it may be, if I'm giving you information, my goal as a teacher is for you to learn and for you to go take that and better yourself with. Your goal as a student is to bring honor to the teacher that taught you something. Say that's the other half of that equation, right? Because it's that type of thing. When you keep that going, you keep your honor in the craft, and you're able to do so much more with that. You get what I'm saying? Like, it looks better upon you than for it to get found out later that you were some skunk that's stealing somebody's concepts and ideas, right? Like, or their original works. There was a big YouTuber that was at a festival that I was at. Good example of this. And everyone knows about well, not everybody knows, but I was one of the first people, I'll say one of, because I can't say for sure that I am the exact very first person. Many, many years ago, I don't know, it's been 8 years ago now, 9 years ago, I made a pointer finger. I made a little hand on a pointer finger because I have bad sensitivity in my hands, because the running gag was in the joke. It was like, hey, you're burning your fingers, because there was a few videos where my fingers were smoking. I was so hot to the steel and people didn't like that. So I'm like, okay, you bunch of safety sallies, I'll make a little Mr. Thing, right? Which was a little pointer finger that I had made, right? And there's all sorts of gags. Oh, you should use the other finger, and like all these other things and stuff that came off from that. Well, I put that out there as far as I could tell first. When I launched that video, there was no one else who was forging hands online, like as far as that. There's I think it's, there's a Italian smith that's real popular for making figurines and hands, so I'm not taking away from that. The type of hand I'm talking about is very basic and crude, right? No one else was doing that in a poker or pointer finger kind of capacity at that time. Well, after that, I said, well, hey, I'll also make like a coal rake, right? With a hand, right? So this way you could use, and I could rake up the coke, right? Using my hand as a pattern. Well, I went to this fest. This other very popular YouTuber came along, asked if he could get pictures and measurements of my stuff. Did so, went home, proceeded to make a bunch of these, right? And say, oh yeah, I just came up with this over the weekend. Oh, you just came up with it over the weekend. Mm-hmm. Yeah, what a weekend, right? He literally took pictures and measurements and then said, oh, I just came up with this over the weekend. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's a dink move, ladies and gentlemen. Don't do that.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to our blanks, because we've been asked before, like, hey, am I allowed to sell what I make from the blanks? Like, yes, definitely. You don't even have to mention us when it comes to that, because we're selling the product for that purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
Ken Foster says, can you present it as art and then copyright it?
Probably could, I guess, but it'll be hard to have that hold up in anything. So that's another thing, like things trying to be patented, right? There are some designs I've come up with which is pretty unique, right? It hasn't been done before in the world of smithing because the technology wasn't available there. Not that someone didn't think of it, but the technology wasn't available to people to make it that way, right? You'd have to spend a lot of money to have this thing produced. There's some things I've designed and come up with that are pretty slick, but they're not patentable. They're not like a patentable kind of thing that, because I would have to prove that no one ever came up with that idea before. Well, you're dealing with a craft that's thousands of years old. That's not possible, right? Again, nothing new under the sun. But there are some stuff like our blanks. If we sell, any type of blank, the goal is for you to make something from that blank. A little butterfly hook, right? You don't have to give us credit, and you don't have to, right? You have to just forge the blank and make yourself a living from it. Like, go enjoy. Go give it to your mother. You don't have to go into this long spew of how you come about making a butterfly from a blank, right? You don't have to go into all that. Just make it and sell it on your tables, do all those sort of things, stuff like that, right? Where that crosses the line is if, like, my treadle hammer kits that I'm selling or my butterfly hooks that I'm selling, when you take the exact copy of this or my exact designs and then you just decide you're going to sell them. 2, you buy yourself a CNC machine and then you're going to knock off Christ-centered Ironworks blanks. That's a dink move. Don't do that. Like come up with your own things, right? You know, I'm not the first person to ever own a plasma bed, so I obviously, right? Like I'm not the, I don't have exclusive rights to the shape of a butterfly, right? So there's going to bound to be some crossover out there, but try to have an original thought. Try to have an original thought. So there is a notion that, imitation is the best form of flattery. That's a thing that a lot of people like to say. And that is true to a point until it becomes thievery and it's not flattery anymore. So you just have to kind of use your own senses on that, and I definitely wouldn't jump to conclusions. That's happened before a couple times with people where, someone jumped to a conclusion that somebody was thieving somebody else's idea and they didn't realize that the person they learned it from somebody else completely different. You know what I mean? Than whoever they learned it from. So that's not jump to conclusions, and do that. That's a long-winded rant. That was a long-winded rant on that. It's a tricky subject. That's what it is, right? It's a tricky subject because, of course, I would like all of my original ideas to only be mine forever and always, and, people pay me lots of monies for my, original thoughts, like anybody would. But that's just not the reality, right? Like, it's not the way the world works. I wasn't the first person to ever come up with the concept or with the idea. So, things are going to happen like that. Oh.
Speargrass says a piece of creative expression, books, arts, photos, etc., are a copyright. A thing is a patent, and there has to be a patent registered.
Mm-hmm.
Ken Foster says they just feel bad to ever take it. It seems like stealing.
Well, anything that you do, so again, it's not stealing anything if you bring honor to where honor's due, right? If you see a guy and his main business is all just, I don't care what it is, say his whole business is selling roses and they look a certain way, and then you knock off that exact style, right, of rose, and you're trying to make it as a copy to his, again, that's where you should feel bad about it. But just because you were inspired to make some roses because you saw somebody else make some roses, you're not doing anything different than every smith and every human being has ever done since the dawn of time. So, go and take it and run with it, So anything I've taught online as a tutorial or as anything, that's all free game. If I cared to keep it a secret, I would have kept it a secret. I don't care to keep it a secret. I believe in education of smiths. I believe in helping you all out and from the ground up, getting your own starts in it and, being successful. So it's what I've been doing this whole YouTube game here for the last 10 years for. You know what I mean? It's all public. It's not behind a paywall. It's, it's all free, right? Anybody can watch. If you give me the time, watch the videos, watch the tutorials, If you do find something that I've done is smarmy and you want to copy it and, you feel so, dude, when someone's praising your name like, hi, Hosanna, maybe drop a line. Say, yeah, I learned it. Not just from some guy on the internet. Remember the name. Remember the name. Mm-hmm. Where you got it from. That's all. Oh, I don't know why. I think it's I will say that I'll kind of go down this route. I think some people have a problem, just obvious problems with the religious connotation of the name Christ-centered Ironworks. Some people will refuse to say Christ-centered Ironworks. They'll say Chris-centered Ironworks, or they'll say, oh, the guy on YouTube, or they'll say, yeah, that Blacksmith in Michigan, or they'll say other
Roy
stuff
guy.
because they just, that Roy guy or whatever, they will do their best not to say that name. So I think, so I've ran into that a few times online as well, or it's like, yeah, hello, my name is. You know what I mean? Like name the channel. It's okay, you know. So it's like, it's okay. You can say that in your, you know, your non-Christian, you know, friends chat. Just say, yeah, I learned it from this guy. He's a pretty cool dude. Yes, I know. He's one of them weird guys, you know, that believe in Jesus. Okay, well, you know, hey, we'll have to forgive him that because he puts out some cool stuff. It's okay to do that. It's all right. Your friends won't disown you. You know, I don't have to be hidden under your mattress like a magazine.
Hi, Eli. He said Comrade Fire Chaps.
Yeah, Comrade Fire Chaps. You know, yeah, there you go. Oh.
Eric says they wouldn't go that far, Roy.
I just, yeah, I don't know. I've had that so many times where people have like done something and they're like, oh, I learned it from some guy on YouTube. Just some guy on the internet. I go, really? I'm pretty sure I know the guy. Oh, I'm pretty sure I know the guy where you got it from. You know, it's okay. It's okay. It won't take anything away from your accomplishments if you say, I learned it from that Christ Center Ironworks fella.
That's what the abbreviations are for, right? CCI.
Yeah, there you go. That's your route. You know. I think they just get like hot. They start feeling their ears sizzle. Their feet become inflamed.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Gets
Can't
real-
can't
gets
say
like
it.
20 degrees hotter all of a sudden.
Some guy on the internet. There you go. Whew. Dodge that bullet.
And Foster says, you have what, 2,500 videos?
Getting pretty close too. I think we're up there. I don't know. I know it's over 2,200. So YouTube, they're kind of weird. So I don't have the exact count of videos now because they went away from doing that, giving the exact counts. They only do whole numbers. So I know it's 2,200 plus. So it's not quite 23
Yeah,
yet.
I think you have to use like TubeBuddy or something like that.
Yeah,
to see it.
you got to pull up a secondary app to find out however many videos are out there. Yeah, there's a bunch. There's a boatload of content. Yep. Yep, and I got a boatload coming. I have 8 videos in the bank right now that I need to finish producing and get them uploaded online. I've just been so swamped with spring projects around here. And technically end of last year projects that are now become spring projects that I have to work on. So I'm a bit behind on some of those. So I've been working tons of hours. So I haven't had a chance to sit and edit. Just have a day where I just sit and edit and get that done. But there are going to be some more videos coming out. That'll be coming out soon. And then I have a whole video series I have planned on producing around my grill that I've been working on. And yeah, so it's already, I pretty much pickled it the other day. And so she's ready to go. In fact, I kept taking to go show them that real quick.
Okay.
I think.
Mind
I'm
if
gonna do
I
that real quick.
go in for a minute?
Yeah, you can do that. So I'm gonna go show them that, and then we'll probably call it quits here in just a little bit. So, are you gonna come back out?
Do you want me to? Or...
Yes, please. Okay.
All right. I will.
So, all right. Okay, so let's take you in here. I'll show you guys the item in question. So this has all been pickled. Like I said, I'm going to have a video series that'll be coming out kind of on this bit of a process. Once this is all assembled and everything. Pretty much once this is all assembled and done and finished, I will make a whole nother set of stuff that I'll be doing for storyboarding, kind of much like that kind of storyboard. And that's where I'll explain more of this project here as we go. So that one's going to take me a while, obviously. There's a lot of work in that piece. But, you know, yeah, all that sediment's on there, but that's kind of rusty sediment, but you guys can see well, you guys could see the piece. Pull that out. So it's quite striking. And that's just a surface. That's just a surface thing. Pro tip, if you say after you've pickled something to get all of the scale off of it, it will flash rust out in the air. But if you take this, you can see it's right there where it's had a little less oxygen getting to it. You can see it's just black, which is good. But if you take this and you soak it under water, now I have high iron in my water, and that's reacted with the rest of the acidity that was on the steel, and that's why you got this kind of rust color stuff, this like rusty haze, is because of that acidity in the iron that's in the water that I have. But that's basically a clean piece. You know, I can rub it like that. That surface is all prepped to end up doing all the file work on. But back to my pro tip. The pro tip is if you keep it submerged in water like this, it's a low oxygen environment and it won't flash rust on you. So you can just leave it like this for a long time. Assuming you don't have any acidic water, you can pour this off and add clean fresh water if you want. And then it should just stay in clear water and it just won't rust. As long as there's not oxygen to get to the surface, you can't create the iron oxide, and so it won't rust. And so that's a way you could do it after you pickle. Somebody asked, thank you, Ken Foster, and thank you, Roger Caldwell, as well. Roger Caldwell, what do you use to pickle it? Well, what to use to pickle it, I went up to the old Home Depot, and I got this right here. Now, they're hashtag not a sponsor. They are not a sponsor of me whatsoever. But you can see that this is a cleaning vinegar. This is a concentrated vinegar, so it's got 30% acidity, and that's what you want. You want some heavy-duty concentrate. Your regular, this you cannot eat. This is death to you. Do not eat stuff like this. This is not food-grade vinegar. This is a high acidic level vinegar. This will literally etch on concrete, so you gotta be careful with that sort of stuff. But if you just get the 5% acidity that like you get from your regular, like an apple cider vinegar or whatever, it just takes a really long time. This here, with all the scale that was on it and everything, to go from a ton of heavy forged scale to this fully pickled off piece right now was 3 days of cold. So, yeah, so it was just 3 days, and that was just because I had to like leave it for an extra day. But it really would have been done in about 48 hours or so in 30% acidity. I could speed that process up. That process could have been sped up if I would have heated it. If you heat the vinegar, that really agitates that against the surface, and it really speeds up that, pickling process if you heat it up. But yeah. So there you go. That's what it is. But yeah, cleaning vinegar. Go get cleaning vinegar. They sell it at hardware stores. They do not sell it at Walmarts or things like that. You got to go get it at a hardware store. And yeah, it's in the cleaning section. Definitely worth your money, the cleaning vinegar. And I saved the extra. And it's good. It's not a one-time use either. So I poured off the cleaning vinegar out of this tub, and I just poured it back into there. You can reuse it. Well, for quite a long time, many months, so. Okay, Ken Foster, how to keep it from flash rust. Take it out of hot water and add denatured alcohol to stop flash rust. If you take it out of the hot water or you take it out of the bath of vinegar, the biggest thing is to rinse it really good, and that'll stop the flash rusting for the most part. You rinse it really good, and then you can dry it really well. The quickest way, the best way to stop the flash rusting is once you heat this up, say, you get this dried off reasonably well, just go ahead and coat it with some oil, some sort of oil of some kind. So some WD-40 or any type of spray oil, or if you want to do some natural oils like lanolin or something, that can be a great oil to add on that. And then it will stop the flash rust right there, allow you to do all your file work, and then you will clean all of that oils off, And then you could do things like, spray paint it or whatever. And that's what I'll end up doing with that. On we go. Back into the other side of the shop. Bada bing. Bada boom. All right, so I'm going to try to answer the questions there. I'm behind the camera. I don't think I'm going to swap it around. Well, I think I've done it before where we swapped it. Let's see here. Boop. Am I still good? I'll try to answer this. Hopefully I'm still good. Let's see here. Yep, all fired up LTD. It will neutralize acid if you add some baking powder. Yep, that's true. You could do that. Ken Foster, it is vinegar. Not 5%, it's 30%. Keep going here. Ken Foster, what if you need to forge weld? Well, all your forge welding, so everything should be done before all this should be worked out before you are going to your final finishing stages. So all your forge welding should be done, everything should be done, and then you do your pickling and things like that. If it's going to flash rust and you still need to do forge welding, let's say you pickled it because you need to do some file work or something, and then you need to weld it some more, it's just going to produce more oxides, and then you'll have to pickle it again because it's going to do that right in the forge, because oxide is iron oxide. It's oxygen mixed with iron. So it's going to do that. Speargrass. Whatever, I guess. Sure. Or you can deliberately rust it and boil it and turn the rust FeO3 to hematite FeO4. LOL. Yeah, sure. Go for it. Yeah, so yeah, in the welding environment, in the forge welding environment, there's always going to be some percentage of oxygen. It's why we produce scale. Scale is essentially oxygen and iron. That's it. And it's iron oxide. And it flakes off and does what it's got to do. So okay. Yeah, so cleanliness of forge welding. It's going to oxidize. The only thing, so everything oxidizes. It's only to what extent or what degree, right? The higher and higher you climb in temperature, the more and more oxides, the more and more of that material, the iron, is able to interact with the oxygen in the environment around it. So that's why, like, when you go so hot, right, when you get so hot with steel, all of a sudden you start getting a lot of sparklers and cracks, especially if you've got a lot of air going into your fire pot. You get all that 4th of July spill. Well, what that is that's that oxygen really attacking the steel, right? That is really attacking the iron in there and creating a lot of iron oxide that is like then flaking off and bursting, basically, going nuclear there for you. And so that type of deal, right? So as you go lower down the temperature chain, you reach a point where it doesn't produce as much scale anymore. And that's at a non-scaling heat. And that's usually like a bright red to a very dull orange to bright red. That's your non-scaling heat. That's where you would do a planishing heat. And that's where you would clean off your scale and things like that. When it comes to a forge weld, you're forge welding a bit or anything else, it is pretty much impossible for you to keep the oxide out unless you've already arc welded the thing shut. You're going to have to like exclude it. You're going to have to, bring the thing out and put it in a pure nitrogen environment. And, you're going to have to do a lot of weird stuff to try to completely exclude oxygen from your billet or anything that you're working with. You're going to have to do a lot of weird stuff. And it's just not really worth it. Most of those oxides, if you watch the oxygen in your forging environment, and you get rid of it, right? If you watch your oxygen amount, that gets expelled. That layer of, you know, junk in there gets expelled on your first couple hammer blows. When you make your welding passes, that gets expelled, and then there's just clean steel touching each other. And at that point, there's no more oxygenation inside the joint. That's why I say with flux, if something's going to become trapped, right? Say you got a taco here, right? You know, you're going to weld your axe blade. You're going to weld your high carbon bit over the outside of a wrought iron or something like that, right? A wrought iron axe body. Right down in that groove and along that plane there is a place where scale can potentially, or iron oxide, can potentially become trapped. And if it's trapped in there, just the hammer itself, just the hammer blow itself will not drive that up and out. The surfaces around it will close up and trap that oxides in the joint itself. It might be welded all the way around the edges, and it might just have a big chunk of scale in the middle of it that wasn't able to get expelled. So that's why we use flux. Flux is a cleaning agent. That's the best way to think about it. It does not stop oxygen from getting in your joint. It does not do that. It combines with the iron oxide and it floats it to the edges through capillary action to the edges of your joint. So it gets in there and it kind of runs through. The best way I can explain it runs through and it takes all of that iron oxide with it and pulls it up out towards the edges of the joint. If there's any sort of oxygen, if there's any sort of oxygen in there, it is minimal at that point. If there's any sort of blocking, I should say, from that scale being propagated out to the outside edges of your joint, it's a minimal thing. But the scale acts as a detergent. It's churning and burning on top of that surface. It's pulling that oxide and pulling it out to the edges of your joint. So when you go pop that first time, you expel that out and you got good clean metal that's coming together. The rest well, I apologize if it comes out as a rude jerk. I don't mean to be a jerk. I have some mild steel, mostly bend to the right shape. I then pickled it, so I have it in the high carbon bit. How do I keep this from causing issues with pickling? You know, Ken, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't think I'm understanding the question. It's kind of hard to do, I guess, you know, when you're writing it out. I'd have to see what you're talking about. How do I keep this from causing issues with pickling when I add another bit of steel? You have some mild steel, mostly bent to the right shape. I then pickled it. So I have it in the high carbon bit. So how do I keep this from causing issues with pickling when I add another bit of steel? I'm not sure. I'm not sure, Ken. I'm not sure. I'd have to see. I would have to see what you're talking about there. I'm missing some in translation there. So, apologize. Your train of thought is, I'm missing the train of thought. It's not working with my train of thought. So I think I'm on a different train that left my station. I apologize. Eric might have come up with a solution there. Who knows? Yeah. So again, I'll repeat. Anytime you weld, it's going to create oxide, and then to pickle the stuff off, it's going to happen. Pickling is a final step process. Speargrass just said it, right? Not a mid-forging process. Yep. Yep. Oh, you got some food.
I do.
Look at her. Look at her. Oh. We're trying to help Ken, but his thinkings are bypassing my thinkings. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not reading it right, so. But. Yeah. So in that case, Ken, again, if you have some 1050, you're trying to make a wrapped eye hatchet out. You need to bend, right? You're saying I need to bend the 1050 or so, and clean it up and add 1084 for the edge. Okay, so again, you would wrap it, you would forge it, you do what you're doing, right? You could clean it up. You're not going to stop the flash rust. It's going to rust. Like, that's just going to happen. But that's not going to inhibit your weld. It's not going to inhibit the weld, because that initial rust, it's a very superficial rust. It's going to disappear the second your forge fire comes on and be replaced by the forging scale. The scale that we all have to deal with. The only way to do that is, once it comes up to temp, is to take and layer on some flux on there, so this way it's cleaning that actively as you go and you weld it up. Then you're going to pickle the whole thing later and then file it and do whatever you got to do to highlight it. But that's the only way I can say to take and do it. What is the purpose of pickling steel? I'm sure it's not for flavor. David, yeah. No, it's not. It's for a very special taste. No, it's not. It's not for flavor. Take care, Tim O'Connor. Happy Memorial Day. Yeah. So the purpose of pickling steel is it eats away at the mill scale that's on the iron bars. It eats away at forging scale that's on the bars, and it leaves the surface somewhat softened, is what I found. Like, if you feel pickled steel, it has like I don't know what to talk about. The surface has a bit of a texture to it. It's almost, it feels soft. It's the best way I can explain it. That's just a pure anecdotal thing. But if you pickle the scale off, that scale is kind of a hardened little layer. It's a little bit of iron, but it's got a little bit of carbon in it. And so that scale is kind of hard. And you pickle the steel to make your filing a lot easier. And you don't end up plugging up your files or dulling your files as bad. It's not a big deal in today's day and world where we've got angle grinders and stuff. But since this is being done all traditional, this is being done with file work, hand filing. We're going to file this. I'm going to file all my joints to make all this fit together nicely. I need that scale gone. And I need to clean up all my scrolls. And I got scraping to do and things like that, and filing to do on my collars to make them perfect. And then once all that's done, I brighten the steel basically, or brighten the iron up. Once all the file work's done, then it will go, then it'll go through the final finishing processes. It won't go back to being pickled again, but it'll be going back to the, I'll assemble the grill, do all that business, and then I will probably give it a good wire wheel, and then it'll get painted, is what will end up happening to it. So it's kind of like a process in amongst the process, but it has nothing to do with the flavor. Except Roy's flavor of the day, maybe, which is Baroque iron. Yep, pickling. Yep, pickling makes that forge scale clean off way easy. And you can do it without any sort of power equipment. You don't have to do it with any wire wheels or anything like that to try to get rid of it. It's like it just dissolves it and it's gone. So that's what's nice about the pickling process. And bad thing about the pickling process is, again, if you just take that thing out and you dry it all off and you hold it out in the wind for a few minutes, it's going to turn orange on you. It's going to get some flash rust to it. It's just it's kind of part of that process, but you should be doing other finishing steps to it after the pickling process. So it's going to be filing. You're just going to be working with it like that. But the flash rust is a few microns thick maybe on there. So quick little touch with the file or a wire brush and it's gone.
That sounds good, Ken.
Cool.
Yeah, the spider earrings.
Yep. Robert Loss, flash dance with rust. Yeah. So, anyways, well, there you go. That happened. You're all welcome. This live stream's been awesome, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been.
I've answered a lot of questions, so apparently Jessica made dinner for herself. She got hungry.
I just had some leftovers. So we're supposed to grill chicken. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I would have started that, but then it would have burnt while we were out here. So
Yeah. Nobody wants to
not
eat
the
burnt
greatest
chicken.
idea.
Huh. Nobody wants to eat burnt chicken. So. So, all right. Well, I'm going to go. We've been going 3 hours now, so got to ask Minnesota door class.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what about that? Real quick. Ken?
Yes, he'll be there.
Yep, I'll be there. Yep. So thank you all, everybody. So, anyways, yeah. So we are going to be back again in another month, doing the same old thing, again, but hopefully different. I hope to be doing some sort of bit of forging for everybody on the next stream, and hopefully that will go well. I hope you guys enjoyed this stream. Some of it hopefully was informative and fun to listen to, at least. Really get off on his rants here. And but thank you all for joining us, and thank you for everybody who makes the channel possible. Thank you for everybody who's purchased stuff with us. Thank you for everyone who just tunes in and watches our videos and shares them and stuff like that. I mean, again, we just couldn't do it without you all. So thank you all very much. I hope everyone has an awesome and blessed weekend, and that you guys have get out in your shops hopefully with the long weekend and get to make something cool. That would be neat. And if you do end up making anything cool from our blanks or otherwise, go ahead and send them to us. I think there's a contact link down there, isn't there? Yeah.
Sure is. Yep.
Send us stuff. If you're on Instagram, send us some of the stuff you made on Instagram, or wherever, right? Wherever you can contact us. We'd love to see those photos. So take care, everybody. God bless each and every last one of you. And we will catch you all on the next one. Bye now. Let's see where I could go. Where do I go? There it is. That's where I go. Bye, everybody. God bless.